Good morning, everybody. We will call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for June 26th. And we will start off with a salute to the flag, and we will ask our veteran who's standing right here in front, Mr. Pete Todoroff, to lead us in the salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Todoroff. And with that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly. Marcia Burke-Bigler, Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung, Vice Chair.
Present.
Bob Lucy.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Present.
Jeannie Herman. County Manager John Slaughter.
Present.
Assistant District Attorney Paul Liparelli.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So first on our agenda is an appearance, Mr. Manager.
Yes, item 3 is an appearance by Beth McMillan, Executive Director for Reno's Art Town Festival, with a presentation and update on 2018 Art Town events. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Beth McMillan, Executive Director of Art Town, and thank you so much for having me here this morning. It's a very exciting time. We are just days away from our festival, which begins this weekend, and I hope that you're all able to come and enjoy and see how our city and county and region has been completely transformed. We now have satellite campuses. Well, when Art Town first started in 1996, it was really located in downtown Reno. We now have satellite locations in Carson City, in Virginia City. We have locations in Incline. We have venues in Arrow Creek, in Collin Ranch, in Midtown, and throughout the county. And I'd like to review some of the events that are taking place in your county. I'm sure you've all heard of Dragon Lights Reno. That is going to be a huge, huge event in our community at the Wilbur D. May Arboretum. Oh, and you're all getting the little books right now. It's 13 acres of these incredible lanterns that are going to be lit up every night. And it's a really wonderful partnership with the May Arboretum, the county, and Art Town. Bartley Ranch, of course, we have events. We have evenings on the ranch. We also use the amphitheater tremendously. We work very closely with the county as well as the foundation. That's the Robert Z. Hawkins Foundation. Every Monday night, every Thursday night, we have Toccata out there. We have the Reno Youth Jazz Orchestra, Reno Pops Orchestra, AVA Ballet are all performing in that beautiful amphitheater, and all of our headliners. All the Washoe County libraries are venues of Art Town. The Wilbur D. May, not only the Arboretum, but the museum has a textile exhibit. And Lazy 5 has weekly concerts. So we're all over the county. We continue to grow and take Art Town to the people, as well as have Art Town in our core, our downtown, which is really where Art Town started. And I believe that that will always be our main stage. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. I know that you may have some questions. We do have over 500 events during these 31 days in over 100 locations. 75% of everything is free, making everything completely accessible to everyone in our community. We really take into account equity, inclusivity, and diversity, and make sure that we are parallel with the makeup of our community and who we serve. And we serve all of you, and we serve everyone in your county. So without further ado, I would like to show a very short video of what it's going to feel like at Art Town. And then if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them. So can we show the video?
Great, beautiful.
So, and thank you very much for your support. You know that Art Town is very fortunate. We receive money from the federal government, the NEA. We've received money from our state, our county, and our city. And I think that is just a tremendous honor for all of us. And I think it also shows the worthiness of the festival within this community. And so really a heartfelt thank you to all of you for your support and for coming out and seeing the events and joining us during the month of July. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to it.
I'm going to take roll call for all of you at Art Town. Thank
Okay.
you very, very much. And working with, I just have to do a little shout out, working with Kate and Mr. Slaughter is just really amazing. So we
They're
really.
the best.
I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Our next item is item 4, which is public comment. Comment heard on this item is limited to 3 minutes per person, may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission also hears public comment during individual action items, and comment at that time is limited to 3 minutes per person also. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Thank you. I have first on the list Ms. Tammy Holtstill. Good morning.
Good morning, Tammy Holtstill, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. For the record, the water's still there. I'm still here for the record. I'd like to start off by saying that we have noticed that the pumping of Swan Lake over to Prado Ranch property is lowering that side to a point. I would assume that this is happening because you have granted money for fixing of the nature study, which is kind of hard to get to when it's underwater. So I figure there's an ulterior motive to what's going on there, and it's nice to see that since you allocated money there, that it does get fixed. Along with that, speaking of the nature study, since that is Washoe County property, there are abandoned vehicles out there. It's bad enough to have HESCO barriers, but then to have abandoned vehicles out there being even more destroyed makes it look like a war zone, even worse than it already does. So it would be nice if that was taken care of also and addressed. As far as anything additional new going on out there, I've heard some rumors. I haven't gotten a 100% confirmation, so until I do, I don't want to bring it up yet. But I look forward to, if it does, it will be great. So, as far as that goes, I still have a minute and 33 seconds, and I really don't have anything else to say. You build it, you drain it. You pump it, you drain it. I already talked about that at American Flats, there was bird seismic, and they were doing some testing out there, and it would be nice to know what the results were. I would assume that Tumwa, based upon my understanding, is the one that was in charge of recruiting them, but it would be nice to get the proper information to see what the testing actually showed. So I've put in a request with Tumwa on that. As far as Tumwa goes, I'm really disappointed at the fact that this commission took our voice off of there, considering Tumwa's doing damage out there, and that District 5 is not being represented on Tumwa. And it is evident with what's happening out there. So, thank you.
Good morning again.
Good morning. My name is Pete Todoroff. I'm in Incline Village, Crystal Bay. I have a couple of complaints about the farmer's market up in Incline. One of them is a person who has a meat place in Incline. So I'm going to read what he wrote to me. Recognizing there are benefits of having a farmer's market in rural communities, like my friend does in rural Oregon, sells these eggs he raises, and we have issues called the farmer's market in Incline because the two farmers market are people, local people, that sell their crops
and their vegetables and fruits which they are raised locally. We have a house in Incline Village and pay our high property taxes, and we own a business that sells fresh meat and seafood in Delhi. We employ people all year round and all live in Incline Village. We pay our high rent for our brick and mortar business. We have local-based resident customers, but rely heavily on the summer months for those businesses to make their money. So bringing mobile meat and seafood companies to Incline Village as so-called farmers market at the busy time of the year to sell their products, we already sell that we already have the meat at the meat market, and a farmer's market is not a meat and seafood business. It is just strictly raising your crops that you sell. Meat and seafood sales do not collect sales tax for Washoe County, but our combined business with our deli does, and does the market we are in. So why here and why on the county property is this taking place? They're about competition. It's not about competition with Raley's, for instance, host a farmer's market, but this farmer's market is on county property. I'm just going to tell you the person who is the owner of Village Meats and Seafood Company in Delhi. Now, another complaint I have, which I don't have much time, another person went to the farmer's market. He bought fruit, 3 tangerines, and 3 days later, they were still not ripe, could not eat them. He bought cherries at $5 a basket, and they were sour. So I wondered, how good is the representation of the use of in Washoe County property? I had a feeling they would be cheated. A fraud was done in this representation of the product being sold. I will not try the dog food. But anyhow, that's it. I've had numerous complaints.
Thank you, Mr.
Numerous.
Todoroff. Next is Miss Elise Weatherly.
Elise Weatherly, a Washoe County resident. I want to say, first of all, thank you to Mr. Todoroff, because I'd actually been discussing whether we were going to go to farmer's market or not, and now that I have some information, I'll do a little further analysis before we go do that thing. What I wanted to say is assumption is consumption. If somebody says something, just because they say that they are something and are going to do something, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. Sometimes we have to judge actions more than words. All right, and if the devil had a Bible, he would probably say, "Thou shalt not commit political incorrectness." Okay, and what I've noticed here is that I think we're switching sides. I watched Maxine Waters in action. Have you guys seen what she's doing lately? She is tipping some tables, that woman is. And so I'm going, well, I might not necessarily agree with what she says, but I think I'm going to go ahead and tip some tables. So I want to address Reno Art Town. Did you know that I was not invited to play music there? Even though I saw these pictures and they've got people raising up and stuff, you know why I was not invited? Because I say that there was a man that was raised from the dead. And that's not really politically correct for me to say that and go out in public with it. So we can have all these other things, but we can't invite people like me. Oh, well. And the other thing, too, is that instead of giving them money, you know who I give the money to? The police department. Do you know why? Because they might live in a really nice part of the world where, you know, bike days are good and everything. By the way, I did some research, and there was one person riding a bike on bike day. Okay, we live in a community that needs cars. We have to commute via cars. It's just the way we are. All right, so there's Art Town, but right down the street, there's Locust Street. Right down the street in Locust Street, there are drug transactions taking place on a regular and daily basis. I want more money to go to the police so that they can stop that activity. Is that being politically correct, or is that being okay? You guys wouldn't want me on this board because I would say, no, the money is going to go to the police department, okay, so that they can clean up the infestation of drug users, which would include some family members. Also, what I would do is, since my morals and ethics class was completely discarded, you know, just because I can think my finger up and my eyes were not evolved, it's impossible. That means there is a creator and that we have to report into somebody, and he is keeping a court record of everything we say and do. I can't prove it, but I know it. So let's just go on to the money aspect of it. Let's talk about systems. Okay, so we have a SAP system here for the county that's, I understand, is very difficult to control and to use. But instead of looking at other systems that might make things more manageable and function for the employees, we keep what we've got because we're used to it. All right, so what I'm going to say is that we've got logic conflicts in here. We can be diverse, but we have to exclude the truth. In diversity, we have to exclude truth. All right, so what I want to say is, let's take a close look at how we're spending money. Let's not throw money away because we do have a what? A budget. I'm on a budget. I can't have everything I want. I can't afford everything I want, so I have to put things in priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no more public comment, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, the next item is our Commissioner County Manager's announcements, reports and updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Have anything, Mr. Manager?
Just one at the moment related to today's agenda, and that is a notice that item 29, which is the Lantern Fest, make sure I have the right number, 29, which was a public hearing for the Lantern Fest. I think because it is a public hearing, perhaps we'll have to open the item and then close it, but the request from the applicant has been made to withdraw that item at this time.
Okay. I don't see any commissioners. Commissioner Jung, Vice Chair Jung.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I had mentioned at the last meeting and forgot to follow up with said mention that visiting out at Lazy Five Park for the Eid celebration, the end of Ramadan, I noticed that parking lot is a mess, and trying to find your way back to where they had reserved the area, there's not true directional ways to go. And I'm wondering if we can't take a look at all county-owned facilities, especially the ones that the public pay for, well, they pay for everything, the public actually get an end use for, and do a pavement and condition study for all of those areas, because it doesn't look beautiful. It's beautiful going in where the library is and the splash park, but to go all the way to the back there's big potholes, again, no directional signs, people cutting all the way through the parking lot or people going the way that they're supposed to because there's no lines to tell you which way to go. And that's just one place. So I'm sure that there are other that we need to look at pavement condition and beautification of the citizens' parks and other areas that they use. And I know we don't have any money, but it wouldn't be too bad for staff to come back and give us a report on all those conditions, and then we can prioritize those as such when we do start having money for these capital improvements. And this not in any way criticism of staff, we just haven't been able to keep up with our capital improvement program. And then I wanted to announce that I went to, last Friday night, I went to Dog Tales, the Canine Rehabilitation Center and Sanctuary fundraiser. And I know they partner with Regional Animal Services because these are the people that pull animals that have, dogs that have been in the cage at the Humane Society for 9 months, or they're dogs that normally the Humane Society would say these are not viable dogs, maybe because they've been beaten so bad by humans, they can't make eye contact, and they put in the hard time to turn these dogs' lives around, and you should have seen them parading a pit bull up there, and that had just horrible stories. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. But I'd like to see what are we doing to partner with them to help them reach their goals, because they are helping us reach our goals by pulling those animals that are so needing a lot more tender care than we can do as a government agency. So I think maybe a video through SOSU or a PSA announcement on our TV channel, some sort of produced commercial-like thing, just to get the interest and get more people to donate. I know they raised a good deal of money, but they're a brand new 501c3 and trying to figure out how to do fundraising as well. So any way we can help them with that partnership, I would request that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Manager, where and when will we see cargo containers? And I ask this because I've been given some information that possibly somebody has been cited for having one, and we should have had this done long ago. So I don't think cargo containers, especially on large parcels, are an unreasonable ask. And I don't know where we got stalled. I thought it was done, but it's not done. I'll go to NACO here in just a second. The festival and events and entertainment outdoor permits, we really need to add some kind of language. The Lantern Fest pulled their permit, wisely so, because of weather conditions. We're now going to charge them another fee when they come back in October. And so maybe we can add some kind of language, some provision where when they table an item, while I realize staff is still going to have to look at it, but I think much of the work could be done, and maybe there's a reduced fee if they have to cancel due to unforeseen circumstances, which again is, it's hot, dry weather. They have wisely canceled, and I applaud that. Mr. Manager, how can we get more attention to 311 and get citizens calling 311? I get so many requests and so many phone calls, and I'm trying to direct them because many of them are issues that 311 could deal with. It's just a matter of 311 connecting them with the right staff member. And so I don't know how we advertise this better. How do we get it to people? Maybe even drop a little flyer in utility bills where we have sewer or wastewater that, if there is an issue, have them call 311. And I've had some residents call me back and say, and this fellow this weekend called me. He called me on my home phone because I've known him for 30 years. Our children went to school together and et cetera. And he's been having some issues. And so I said, look, I need you to log this into 311. He tried to do that, and he couldn't reach them initially. He said he had a hard time. The calls wouldn't go through. So I'm not sure what the circumstances are that we have to deal with. That said, NACO meeting on Friday, good NACO meeting. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about fire, and we talked about dealing with public defenders for smaller counties, which didn't apply to us. But what did apply to us was, and Commissioner Lucy and I were both lockstep on this, NACO has, I believe it's 5 BDRs allowed them. And if we can coordinate with them on some things, and the one that we both agreed on was a BDR to address the 911 VoIP trunk line imbalance. So if you have a trunk line, regardless, if there's a phone number that's assigned to anyone, if it's a separate phone number, that phone number should pay for the 911 fee. It just should. It's a phone number, regardless of whether it's on a trunk line. And I know that we're going to get lobbied hard, all the reasons why we shouldn't do it, but all the reasons why we should do it is because every single one of us who owns a cell phone has to pay it. Every single one of us who owns a phone line has to pay it. And so why shouldn't trunk lines for every single telephone number, just like my own number, just like my wife's number, just like my kids' numbers, why shouldn't they have to pay it? I'll get off my box now. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Vice Chair Jung.
Yeah, to piggyback on Commissioner Hartung, we should use every opportunity, like on our letterhead when we're ready to order new letterhead, on our tax bill, on any communication we have with citizens. 311 should be front and center. Questions about this tax bill? Dial 311. No more dial this person directly. Dial 311. That should be our clearinghouse of all calls. That way we really do get a pulse of what's going on in the community and what are the questions. Otherwise, it just goes to one staff and we never know what happens. So I think we got to push with that. And I know the communications team has as well, but maybe they need us to say this up here too so that we can get a little bit more push. When you're ready to print new paper, don't throw paper away. Don't do anything like that. But I think 311 should be on everything, just so that it just gets pounded into their brain. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. And next is Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things, and Commissioner Hartung was
fantastic down at NACO. And he's right. You know, NACO has 5 BDRs, and right now only 3 of those BDRs are being discussed to be used. There's 2 available BDRs that we could use and do more work with, and haven't had those really addressed. So we keep pushing all of the commissioners to, if there are discussions or things, you know, we need to continue to carry that message forward. One other thing I wanted to bring up, and I have brought up with Assistant County Manager, but I was at Food Truck Friday a few weeks ago with my family, and I ran into a lady. Her name is Colleen Cardenas. She has a food truck called the Super Wagon. And nice lady, very, very friendly, was very helpful to me when I was trying to find warm water for my daughter's bottle. So all that aside, though, it was great that we kind of ran into each other and struck up the conversation. And she said she had the same challenge, and this is kind of to Commissioner Hartung's point. She had applied to be a vendor during the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue event. This is back when the event was scheduled to go on. Our staff and the health department staff, mandatory that she got certain permits to participate, which she paid for and got receipts for. When the event got canceled or was postponed until we could make further discussion about it, she came back in to get the refund, not being able to participate in the event and get the refund for the permits. She only got reimbursed half of her permit fee, saying that was not there wasn't any kind of precedence to do that, and so it was a challenging thing. And I know very rarely this happens in the county, that an event starts going off, and so this is kind of a one-off deal. But there should be some sort of ability for our staff to go, hey, this event got canceled. This is a challenge. This is something we need to do, and we need to make right. And these people they have food trucks. I mean, it's not a business that they're making millions of dollars, you know, and so every dollar counts to them. And when they're paying $200 for a permit and they get $97 back from the county, that doesn't show good faith. It doesn't show good business for on our behest. So I would ask that we continue to look into that as we look at these special events. If we're going to allow certain services like that and make it mandatory that they have 2-day permits or whatever to be vendors, that they have some recourse available to them if something happens like that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I didn't want to take up time from anyone else. So just as a way of announcement on 311. 311 is Washoe County's call center, just for the public to know, which has been launched now. We did a soft launch. We are doing more aggressive marketing on that as a service, and it's really one phone call for any county service. If there's an issue, a complaint, if there's a compliment, anything that you really need to communicate, if you have questions about the county. We are doing inserts for various mailings coming this summer. We've also delivered flyers to our libraries. As we replace our fleet, the decals on the fleet and the badging on the fleet, we'll have 311 information on that. We also are using all of our current and upcoming event sponsorships, such as the balloon races and various marketing tools. So it's just a matter of all of us getting the word out that it exists. It's a wonderful system. It is available 24 hours a day. During business hours, there are staff who answer the phone, county staff who are answering the phone, very, very well versed in county services and can get, if they don't know the answer, they will get the answer for you before they leave the phone with you, and will get your item logged into the system. And follow-up occurs. So that is the best way to sort of enter into that process of issues, any issues, any concerns, information requests from Washoe County. So it's just, I appreciate the discussion today, because the more we talk about it here, the more it's out there. It is absolutely the best way, if you have an issue with Washoe County, to get logged into our system and to get a complaint or a compliment or a question investigated and resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I agree. It's a great system, and I've had several people contact me, and I've referred them to the And I actually got an email back from somebody thanking me for getting their problem resolved immediately, which is really nice that that's happening. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And perhaps, Mr. Manager, Commissioner Jung has kind of led me a different direction. Maybe we should have an agenda item that talks about 311 and what it's used for, how calls are routed if someone does not live in the unincorporated area of the county, they live in the city of Reno or the city of Sparks, how we deal with all of those and just, just allow an open forum for discussion on ideas on how to get it more widely publicized. And I also wanted to mention, Madam Chair, just because on the mid-month 17th, both Commissioner Lucy and I will not be at that meeting. So the joint meeting that's having with the Reno City Council on the 16th that's listed, it's not going to happen? It's being postponed? Okay.
Yeah. And,
All right.
and we are actually not going to meet on the 17th because of a number of different issues, so.
This is what happens when you don't do your own calendar.
The fire board will not meet on the 17th, they will meet on the 24th. But whatever that next day is.
Okay.
And BCC will move all of its items to that next day.
I will delete this.
So
then.
be
My bad.
prepared for a
Thank you.
heavy day. Okay, I see nobody else signed in. Any other comments, commissioners?
Madam Chair, can
Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, I see you're standing in the back of the room. Thank you. Can you follow up on the vehicles the abandoned vehicles in Lemon Valley?
I will follow up with the sheriff's office and Peterson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, good point. Okay, well, in that case, we will move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Manager.
Our next item is our consent agenda, and that is represented in item 6 on today's agenda, so items 6A through 6J3.
Hold or questions about any of these items? I don't see any. I have some public comment, so let's get that in. Miss Elise Weatherly? And Miss Weatherly, will you please let us know which items you're speaking on?
Elise Weatherly, Sun Valley resident. On number 6B, I'm just wondering, what is a cooling off period? I know that has to indicate that there was some trouble, so I wasn't sure if you guys could, publicly declare what that cooling off period is about. And then I noticed that the number 6C, the monitoring services. What I'm going to say is that what you've got to say about the 311, it's crucially important that we have systems in place that actually work. And I'm wondering who is monitoring them, who is determining if the money is worth it, if there's value behind what's going on. Unless the system is used wisely, it's useless and it's costly. So as far as everything goes, I'm just wondering who's documenting, who's logging, who's following up, who is the final say in that these systems are working. And that's all I have to ask. Thank you.
The second is Miss Pam Roberts. And please, Ms. Roberts, let us know which items you're speaking on.
My name is Pam Roberts, and I'm speaking on 6A. Canceling the July, August meetings. I'm not sure what your rationale is for that, but when you cancel meetings like that, that's a pretty big segment of your meetings. Then I'm asking, what is that? Is that an automatic pay increase for you for not working on those days? Are those vacation days? I think it's up to you to do your job and show up and hold your meetings.
Thank you. I see no more public comment, so we'll close public comment on the consent agenda. And I believe I had a motion from Commissioner Hartung. And a second from Vice Chair Jung. Yes, sir.
Can, Mr. Liparelli, can you define what cooling off means? It's not a something where there's an issue between two people. Can you define that for us?
Madam Chair, for Commissioner Hartung, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a policy on behalf of the county that requires a waiting period from the time that an employee retires from the county until they're eligible to do work as a consultant or some other, in some other capacity for the county. There are a number of reasons for having such a policy, but this item on your agenda today is making use of the exception that's provided for in the policy that under certain circumstances, it's necessary for the vitality of the organization to allow some people to be employed sooner than the 6-month period of time. So the cooling off refers to the time that's required to pass before a former employee can be engaged as an independent contractor.
Commissioner Hartung, and thank you, Mr. Luparelli. With that, seeing no more comments, I will ask for the vote, call for the vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda as posted, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And please confirm your vote above. The motion passes 5-0 with all commissioners voting. Thank you very much. Next item is the block vote, I believe. Mr. Manager, is that correct? Vice Chair Jung.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. I would propose in the form of a motion that we put into block items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager.
Oh, wait, don't we need a second?
Oh, we need a second?
I'll second with discussion. I have discussion on a couple of them. So.
Okay. All right, second with discussion, Mr. Manager.
Yes, I will read the proposed items that are in the block vote. Beginning with item 7 is the recommendation to approve a joiner contract for armed and unarmed professional security services via the State of Nevada contract CETS number 19049 awarded to Allied University Universal Security Services. Estimated expenditures are anticipated at $1,791,063 per annual contract. If approved, authorize the purchasing contracts manager to execute the agreement. Item 8 is recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners acknowledge the grant award from the State of Nevada Administrative Office of the Courts to the Second Judicial District Court in the amount of $915,430 with no match required to support the specialty court programs effective July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019. Item 9 is recommendation to approve the reclassification of Human Services Case Manager 1 and 2, pay grade K and L, to Human Services Caseworker 1, 2, 3 to pay grades K, L, and N, retroactive to June 11, 2018. An increase in pay grade for victim witness advocate from I to J, effective July 1, 2018, as evaluated by the Job Evaluation Committee and the Hay Group, and authorize Human Resources to make the necessary changes. Net fiscal impact to salaries and benefits is estimated at $8,782 in fiscal year 17-18 and $277,020 in fiscal year 18-19. Item 10 is a recommendation to accept a grant award from the Walter S. Johnson Foundation in the amount of $220,000 with no county match to adapt and expand an educational program for transition-aged youth statewide from July 1, 2018 through September 30, 2020, and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the necessary budget amendments and authorize the department to execute the grant and the grant award documents. Item 11 is a recommendation to approve a 4th supplemental award for the fiscal year 18 Nutrition Services Incentive Program grant from the State Aging and Disability Services Division in the amount of $155,201 with no county match to support food costs for senior congregate and home-delivered meals retroactive from October 1, 2017 through September 30, 2018. Authorize the department to execute the award and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the appropriate budget amendments. Item 12 is a recommendation to approve certification page and agreement between the County of Washoe Juvenile Services and the Nevada Department of Agriculture Child Nutrition Programs designating Christine Eccles, Division Director, and Frank Cervantes, Director, as the authorized signers for the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program. And if approved, authorize the submission of application for fiscal year 2018-19 and accept reimbursements from the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program for fiscal year 2018-19 for youth detained at Wittenberg Hall Detention Facility. Item 13 is a recommendation to approve acceptance of Community Corrections Partnership Block Grant from the Department of Health and Human Services Juvenile Justice Programs Office in the amount of $318,663.29 to provide treatment and programming to youth referred to the Washoe County Department of Juvenile Services. The grant award period is 7/1/18 through 6/30/19. No match required. If approved, direct the Comptroller's Office to make necessary budget amendments. Item 14 is recommendation to approve a nomination of Tim Calicrate to serve as the lay member of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency's Advisory Planning Commission for a 2-year term ending on June 26, 2020. Item 16 is a recommendation to approve the Forensic Support Services Agreement between Washoe County on behalf of Washoe County Sheriff's Office and various local law enforcement agencies. Churchill County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $40,623. Douglas County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $128,076. Elko Police Department in the amount of $89,146. Elko County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $6,771. Story County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $25,390. Washoe County School District Police Department in the amount of $31,032. Washoe Tribal Police Department in the amount of $3,000. Winnemucca Police Department in the amount of $45,533. Yarrington Police Department, $6,944 for forensic laboratory analysis service fees for the term of July 1, 2018 to July 30, 2019, with a total income of $482,885. Item 17 is a recommendation to approve a bid and approve the agreement to the lowest responsible bidder for the South Valley's Playground Rehabilitation Project. Staff recommends Garden Shop Nursery in the amount of $165,822.65. Item 18 is a recommendation to approve an amendment to the agreement for the full service operation and maintenance of Washoe County sewer facilities between Washoe County and SPB Utility Services through December 31, 2019, to increase the major and minor maintenance fund associated with the agreement from $240,000 to $500,000 on a calendar year basis. Item 19 is a recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2018-19 payments of $255,625 paid in quarterly installments beginning July 1, 2018 as Washoe County's share in annual funding for the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency pursuant to NRS and an adopted interlocal agreement. Item 20 is a recommendation to award bid number 3060-18 for new fleet heavy equipment to the lowest responsible bidder. Staff recommends Pepe Machinery in the amount of $2,484,177.51 for the purchase of 6 new John Deere 644K wheel loaders, 3 new John Deere 744K wheel loaders, and 3 new John Deere 410K backhoe loaders. Item 22 is a recommendation to award a bid and approve the agreement to the lowest responsible bidder for the Leadville Canyon CMP repairs for Washoe County, PWP-WA 2018-183 project. Staff recommends A&K Earth Movers in the amount of $314,000. Item 23 is a recommendation to, 1, approve the purchase of 2 new Vector Model 2110 catch basin cleaners from Owen Equipment Company in the amount of $305,307.84 each, utilizing Washington State Department of Enterprise Services Master Contract Number 1912. 2, to approve the purchase of 2 new 66,000 GVRW truck cab chassis from Velocity Truck Centers in the amount of $121,277, utilizing Washoe County bid number 3007-17. And 3, authorize purchasing and contract manager to execute the Washington State Master Contract Usage Agreement. Item 24 is a recommendation to approve the asset reassignment of multiple vehicles from various Washoe County departments to Equipment Services Fund 669 and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the appropriate asset adjustments with a net $343,289.94. Item 25 is a recommendation to approve fiscal year 2018-2019 sole source purchases of Microsoft and Adobe licensing through joinder with the CDWG and the National Association of State Procurement Officers Master Price Agreement for software value added reseller SHI International and further approve expenditures that will aggregate to exceed $100,000 but will remain within available fiscal year 2018-2019 adopted budget, not to exceed $650,000. Item 26 is a recommendation to approve fiscal year 2018-2019 sole source purchase of computer network equipment, servers, data storage, personal computers, and printers through joinder with National Association of State Procurement Officers, master price agreements for State of Nevada with Dell Incorporated, and further approve expenditures that will aggregate to exceed $100,000 but will remain within the fiscal year 2018-19 adopted budget, not to exceed $1 million. Item 27 is a recommendation to approve fiscal year 2018-2019 sole source purchases of computer network equipment and accessories through joinder with National Association of State Purchasing Officers, price agreements for State of Nevada and Converge One, and further approve expenditures that will aggregate to exceed $100,000 but will remain within the fiscal year 2018-19 adopted budget, not to exceed $1,500,000.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Under discussion, I would say two things. First off, for explanation to those who are listening, the reason we put a lot of these in block vote rather than on the consent agenda is the dollar amount is higher than can go into the consent agenda, but most of these items are budget related and they're things that were approved in our budget. So they're not things that necessarily we have any discussion between us and because they are part of our budget. But if anyone has any questions or any would like to discuss any item, you certainly please come forward and let us know under public comment. You're certainly welcome to discuss any item that is on this agenda. And secondly, I should note for the record that my sister is a senior executive with Dell. Under item 26, you see we are approving a contract with Dell. I have nothing to do with these contracts, but just for public record purposes, I would like to report that she is an executive with Dell. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not trying to pick a fight here, but I'm going to end up.
But you're good at it.
I'm going to end up picking a fight. It's my nature.
Item
16. I've noticed that both the City of Sparks and the City of Reno are still not there, and for forensic support services. And we need to get a contract with both of those agencies, get it solidified. It is, and maybe the way that we do this is that forensics ultimately becomes its own department, its own agency, and work it backwards that way. Perhaps that's how we solve this problem. I'm perhaps talking out of turn, but there you have it. There's my 2 cents on that. I still have 2 cents left. I brought 4 cents with me this morning. Mr. Manager, and I don't know whether this relates to this, but when we start talking about technology services and dealing with servers and data storage, can we look at in the not too distant future if we can save money by using Switch for our data storage? Because we've already encountered some issues downtown with at the DA's office where, and they did a great job of protecting the data room, but I think that there may be ultimately some savings because we won't have to purchase equipment. We won't have to, try to stay ahead of all of the trends, and we don't have to worry about protecting our data because it would be stored literally elsewhere. So those are my 2 comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung, and I actually agree with your suggestion on dispatch. Listen to me on CSI and forensics. I think that might be something that we want to look at and discuss, Mr. Manager. And with that, Mr. Manager.
Yes, if I could, with 2 items. First, related to item 16, which is the forensic services agreements. Just to remind everyone, we are in an existing interlocal agreement with the City of Reno related to that issue. So that's that issue. We will absolutely continue that discussion. And regarding City of Sparks, it's my understanding that they have budgeted for this item. They've budgeted an increase for their portion, and so we will begin discussions with them as well on their portion. not to foreclose on the ability to further the discussion on where we go from here in the future.
Right. Thank you.
Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you. My only comment really is that we're in another fiscal year now. We're going into the next fiscal year without having it resolved. So I'd dearly like to see that happen. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could also address
Yes, Mr. Manager.
Commissioner Hartung's suggestion that's related to the items, 2 items on the agenda related to technology services. We have initiated discussion with Switch and certainly would look at other vendors for that type of a service. It's something that we are investigating and very possibly will bring to you in sometime in the future.
Good. Okay, with that, do we have any public comment on any of these items, Madam Clerk? I don't see it on my,
We do under item 8, Elise Weatherly.
okay. Ms. Weatherly.
Elise Weatherly, Nevada resident. I actually had questions on everything. Number 7, $1.8 million for secure services. What I'm wondering is who's being secured and who's being protected. Number 8, the specialty court programs. What I wanted to know is who is that going to affect? I need a lot of court cases. I need judgment on a lot of different things. And what I've discovered is that in the court system, little pieces. You can't talk about this over here. You can't talk about this over here. It's so segregated that you can't get any answer without waiting for months. I object. Also, on number 10, you guys are taking, what is this? The youth, okay? What I'm going to say is we got booted out of all the youth groups because we want to take the gospel in there. It's politically incorrect to do so. You guys are paying lots of money to take counselors into these places, and you won't let me go in for free, right? Because you have a redacted Bible. I can only go by what you guys want me to say in that place, not what's true. And so we're going in there with half-truths with these kids, paying a lot of money out of my pocket. Oh, by the way, I like your 4 cents comment, because what I will say is you've got more than 4 cents. You've got common sense, and I appreciate that. And so what we're doing is we're spending a whole bunch of our combined checkbook, right? Because this whole county, it's not my checkbook that I have to go home and balance by myself. It's a group of money. It's a group of items that we have to go through and say, can we afford this? Is this worth it? Are we getting our money's worth on this? And the problem is that we've got a lot of expenditures that we're making that don't make sense. The meals for the seniors, I think I've already talked about this 1,000 times. They don't like the meals. They get thrown away. The kids at school, the meal programs, they don't like the meals. I can't force that down my grandson's throat for free. So it's just like everything one after the other. Number 18, we're over doubling that, going from $240,000 to $500,000. We're doubling it. All the questions, number 15, 17, 20, and 22, who's the one that's actually determining who's the lowest responsive bidder? Who's making that determination? I liked what Ms. Burpigler said. She's not involved in that one decision, which is smart. You know, because if we have any personal involvement, we better not be making a decision. But what I'm wondering is, who is making these decisions? The other thing for the forensic support services, yay. I think that we need forensics. Do you know why? I'm going to tell you guys a little story and then I'll leave. I contacted the Prescott Valley Police Department because I suspected drug trafficking going on between Arizona and Nevada. Guess what? It was. They did an autopsy on my ex-husband. Guess what? He died of methamphetamine intoxication. So the fact is that I just had to make a phone call to that police department and they took my word for it. They evaluated, they found out there was illegal drugs on that case. So forensics is important because otherwise how are we going to stop the drug trafficking? Thank you.
Comments? Okay, we'll close public comment, and we have a motion and a second. And please note that it's on your screen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Please vote on your screen and then affirm your vote up above. Motion carries 5-0 with all commissioners voting. So we, next on our agenda is item 21, and we have had a request for a brief legal session on item 21 and item 15. Okay, so, well, here, you go ahead and do it. So first we'll open this back at number 4 and let Commissioner Hartung make his comment.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. You know, I neglected to mention that Chief Andy Andreas, his name is Andreas, but Andy Flock passed away, young man, fire chief who was retired in the city of Sparks. And my heart goes out to his family. My prayers go out to his family. It was just a very sudden thing, and I'm waiting to hear when the service is, and hopefully we'll be in town and I'll be able to attend. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Please let us know when the service is. Okay, we'll close number 4 and go back to where we're at. We do need a very brief legal session, so I would like to take a 10-minute recess right now. Okay, so we will take a brief recess right now to do this legal session on these 2 items before we address these 2 items. So we'll say it won't, hopefully will not be very long, but we will get these items covered. So let's go into recess right. Oh, Mr. Liparelli.
Madam Chair, I know
We are back in session. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And I believe we're going to start with item number 21, Mr. Manager.
We are, and if I could, I believe what the chair and I discussed was we will go to item 21 next. That will be followed by item 30. And then we will get back on track, which item 15 would be after that. So just if you're here for those items. So item 30. I'm sorry.
21, we're going to start with 21.
Yep, 21. And this is a recommendation to consider possible courses of action and direction to legal counsel and county staff to pursue one or more of those courses of action regarding the Warm Springs specific plan refunds lawsuit, Newell plaintiff versus Washoe County, CV 15-01104. This is the lawsuit filed in 2015 seeking, among other things, refunds of money paid by a number of property owners in the Warm Springs specific plan in Washoe County.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Webb.
County manager had alluded, now we're on. As the county manager had alluded, there were 4 courses of action open to the board's consideration today, and the board could take one or more of those courses of action. Very briefly, those courses of action are a refund, and the agenda description articulates the refund, but it's partial or full refunds to current property owners in the Warm Springs specific plan area. And as staff later on may call that the SPA, that means specific plan area, or pay no refunds. The second course of action is reimbursement to partially allow or disallow a reimbursement a reimbursement claim by Capurro Investments for approximately $319,252. The third course of action is a master plan amendment to direct planning staff to initiate appropriate master plan amendments to the Warm Springs area plan and/or Warm Springs specific plan. And the fourth is an interpleader, which is file a lawsuit from the county for interplea the money into the court. We do have various staff members here available for the board's questioning and answers from the board. Myself and Trevor Lloyd, the other planning manager with planning and building, specifically 2 components of the Warm Springs specific plan. We have Dwayne Smith, who is the Division Director for the Engineering and Capital Projects Division. Dwayne can answer questions specific to the reimbursement course of action, and he's also familiar with other portions of the payment funding. And Nathan Edwards, who is a Deputy District Attorney, who is very familiar. He was involved with a lawsuit from 2015 and is available for questions from the board. I didn't know if the board, particularly the chair, wanted a more in-depth presentation or perhaps handle this with questions and answers.
So, commissioners, are you looking for a broad-based, we know a great deal about this because we've talked a great deal about it. Are you looking for a broad-based report? Do you have specific questions? Any of you have specific questions for any of the people who are before us today from staff, or should we go to public comment?
I have questions, but I think public comment might be appropriate first.
Okay, that seems acceptable, so let's go to public comment. We will start with Mr. Stephen Moss. And next, after Mr. Moss, is Ms. Pam Roberts.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stephen Moss. I'm here representing the plaintiffs in the lawsuit that's referenced in the agenda item. I'm here to ask for a specific commitment from the board, which is to refund all the monies to the individuals who paid the development fees initially. One of the things that I saw as we went through this lawsuit is that it appears that the Warm Springs specific plan really isn't viable if you look at what it's intended to provide for, which would be, one of them is a equestrian center, a golf course, and none of these things at this point really appear to be something that really could be built out there. So in reviewing this and talking to Nate Edwards, who is was the counsel on the lawsuit, we talked about this as well, and in the order that was issued by the court, there are seven individual plaintiffs who, according to the judge, have their claims for refunds are what the judge characterized as ripe. So I would ask at a minimum that this commission instruct staff and the attorneys to prepare refunds for the 7 individuals that I have presented claims for to Mr. Edwards. That the remaining question would be, what happens with the remaining funds that are being held for capital improvement projects for Warm Springs? The answer to that is probably a little more difficult and a little more problematic. I think with the blanket request that all the monies that are being held that were collected for the refunds for the different capital improvement projects be refunded to the individual developers who paid them initially. And if you can't find them, then give the money to the current property owners. But the money, again, was earmarked for capital improvement projects in the Warm Springs area. And those none of them have been started. None of them probably will be started. And then lastly, as my time is running out, the request by Capurro, I think, is not well-founded because the funds that they are requesting have nothing to do with the development fees that were collected. The roads that they improved had nothing to do with Warm Springs. And I believe in looking at the refunds or the fees that were paid, that Capurro would be entitled to the fees for the properties that they currently own. So I would ask that the board instruct staff to refund all the fees to the original developers.
Madam Chair, Mr. Moss does represent a group of individuals, and the board typically will give representatives of groups more time. If there's more that Mr. Moss can add, it's at the discretion of the chair and the board.
Okay, Mr. Moss?
Thank you, Mr. Liparelli. If I can review my notes, I think that I pretty much stated the position of the individuals that I represent. And again, it's just One comment that was made by one of the developers, and while you were in recess, is that when they paid their original development fees, they were told by the building department that those fees were going to be returned because there was going to be an amendment to the Warm Springs specific plan areas, as specifically the funding arrangements that are included. One of the proposals you'll see here is that the Warm Springs Development Handbook be amended and the funding portion of that be removed. That would all be fine, but I think they need to look at perhaps changing the handbook completely because of the expansive nature of what's included in the handbook. I don't think it's appropriate at this point, but that being said, the main thing that I am here for on behalf of my clients is to find a mechanism for having the fees that were collected refunded to them or refunded somehow because the monies are being held for capital improvement projects which will probably not be built in the foreseeable future. So again, I would just request that the board entertain a motion to instruct staff to refund the fees to the original developers, and if they can't be found, then refund the monies to the current owners of properties.
Have Ms. Pam Roberts?
Good afternoon. My name is Pam Roberts, and I live on a 5-acre parcel within the Warm Springs specific plan area. I'm not going to address the refunds, and I know there are several people from my neighborhood that will be addressing some other issues. I'll briefly address the reimbursement request from Capuro Investments, Brian Murphy, simply because I do live on a road that he supposedly improved and is asking money for. And I believe your staff's recommendation is not to reimburse him because it was not built to Washoe County standards, and I would agree with that assessment. My concern is really more focused on number 3, the master plan amendment, in which you will be considering removing the financial provisions of the plan. When those financial provisions were put in place, if you look back at your minutes from 1995, and I don't believe any of the current commissioners were on the commission at that time, they were struggling with how to make sure that all of these infrastructure things could happen if you're going to have a lot smaller lot size out in this rural community. And they came up with this financing plan. It hasn't worked. There has been no infrastructure. And my concern is that if you remove it, is the county going to accept responsibility then for building and maintaining the infrastructure in the SPA, including the community water and sewer facilities that were contemplated back in 1995? Are they going to build and maintain the roads, which are currently mostly dirt? Are they going to maintain the drainage issues that potentially are out there so that we don't become another Lemon Valley? And other necessary improvements. If you remove those provisions without having something else in place, who's going to be responsible for all of those improvements? We moved out there, and you're going to hear about a survey that was done, and I participated in that survey. We moved out there from Rolling Hills, which is South Reno, which is a subdivision that was way out in rural South Reno. And before they could build those homes, they went in and they built roads to county standards, and they had drainage systems, and they pre-handled all the potential flood issues before they even built those homes. What's happening out in our valley is they build the homes and worry about the roads afterwards. And that there needs to be some accountability for all the developers, that when you have development plans submitted to you so that those things are taken care of. And that's it for me today.
Madam Chair, your mic wasn't on, so.
Sorry about Ms. Susan Ambrose, and after that, Ms. Sharon Korn.
Hello. I'm here representing the Warm Springs Property Owners Alliance Task Force. Our group was formed in the interim when our local CAB had to cancel their January and May meetings and potentially would not have a July meeting if there were no new development proposals formally submitted. We had concerns for the new residents recently moved to the specific plan area or having purchased properties and built homes along the perimeter of the spa. We now have finally seen development start in our community, and it's been a long time coming, but we are grateful to have our new neighbors. After reading some of their social media posts and speaking with our new neighbors, we found out that some of them did not know what the spa was. They didn't realize they lived inside the spa boundaries, or why, if they did know about the spa, why are they being treated differently than the rest of the area? So out of those concerns, our task force decided to put together a survey, and we hand-delivered that 2 weeks ago to every resident that was home. Those that were not home within the spa or along the perimeter of the spa, we left on their gates. We did appreciate their no trespassing signs and did not go through those. So one of our other task force members will be providing those results to you. And our task force feels that the lawsuits and the legal issues being discussed today demonstrate the fact that the county needs to look at the spa and reform it so it will work in the future for the new residents, future residents, the old residents, and the county also. So we're recommending that beyond the financing plan, that you take a look at opening up the specific plan for further revisions to other areas that are of concern, especially to our new community members like Pam Roberts that you just heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sharon Korn, and after that, Mr. Marshall Todd.
And Ms. Korn prepared some documents for the board, which I'll distribute and place on the record.
All right, thank you.
Okay. My name is Sharon Korn, and I am a member of the Warm Springs Property Owners Alliance Task Force, and thank you for having us here today. We want to present to you the pulse of the current community in the spa on its perimeter, which would be Amy, Ironwood, and Whiskey Springs, and then some additional residents that live within 5 miles, but because of the expected traffic, we know they will either be directly or indirectly affected. The original plan hasn't been updated for over 20 years. We feel it's important for you to have resident input as you discuss the possibility of modifying the master plan. As Susan said, our task force conducted this community survey on Saturday, the 16th of June. We asked only 5 questions and hoping to get a good participation. We had 3 teams that canvassed the area. We collected surveys from folks who were at home and left packets, as Susan said. Out of 51 respondents, over half of them did so in person. It was a good turnout. If you look at the summary page, you'll see that 65% of the overall response from everybody, and then 76% for those who live in the SPA or its perimeter. So I'm going to cover each question real briefly and just do a few call-outs on them of the 5 questions. Question 1, we asked the residents to identify where they lived in relation to the spa. Of the total respondents, 75% actually lived in the spa or on the perimeter. Question 2, we addressed the concerns of the development direction of the Palomino Valley and Warm Springs. All of the choices besides other came in at 69% plus, so there was a lot of people concerned about every item on there. If you look at the other, you'll see some of the concern and confusion as to why the suburb would be built out this far out of town in the first place. Question 3, water concerns. 72% do not want to be part of a community water system. 70 believe that that system could affect their own well. Question 4 asks folks for reasons they chose to live in Palomino Valley, and probably didn't need to ask 2 and 4 at the same time, because whatever they listed as a concern was something that was positive about wanting to move out there. They basically want to live in a rural area away from overdevelopment. And then question 5 addressed what commercial or recreational entities they might want to have. So I would encourage you to review the survey in more detail, since I'm running out of time. In summary, folks are not very warm to the idea of a suburb out where we live. That's the reason we moved there.
Many did not have it disclosed to them by their real estate agents, which I know in other states that would be inviting a lawsuit. Residents like the 40-acre minimum, which brings a rural life and privacy, and are concerned about the future of the valley. We hope that you will take their concerns as you make the decisions about their future. Thank you very much.
Mr. Marshall Todd, and after that, Mr. Larry Johnson. Good morning, or afternoon now.
Good afternoon. My name is Marshall Todd. I'm also a member of the Warm Spring Property Owners Alliance Task Force. I just purchased my home out there this past November. I bought 40 acres because I wanted to be alone, actually. I was vaguely familiar with the spa plan that required wells and septics, and that they were allowing some 2.5-acre parcels. I wasn't aware, however, that they could go down to below, that it was zoned for 1 acre or less if there was a community water and sewer system put in. I'm planning to retire soon on a significantly reduced fixed income, and I won't be able to pay a lot of money for improvements that really only benefit developers. So I wanted to request that since the spa plan's over 20 years old, and the impact of traffic on Pyramid Highway, tying into existing roads in the valley, et cetera, be re-examined before approving any new projects. That the developers pay for all improvements needed through impact fees, and that all the roads be turned over to the county, since we're already paying taxes to cover these costs. I'd hate to see a homeowners association set up where we were had to pay twice. I also asked that all of us on the periphery of the spa, with 40 acres or more, be exempt from any development costs. Thank you.
Greg Dennis. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commission members. Larry Johnson, I'm president of the Palomino Valley General Improvement District. I'd like a little bit of latitude as far as time because district represents over 500 residences out there. I probably want to summarize a little bit of history because this is really muddled up. The specific plan was approved, financing plan was approved, and individual development agreements signed and approved. The plan, the financing plan and the development agreements required certain roads be developed as well as community water, community sewer systems, and so forth. The master developer essentially fell out, particularly right before the recession, and so none of these major infrastructure, parks, fire stations, sewer treatment plant, water treatment plant, none of this, of course, was ever built. In contrast, we did have a few small developers go forward within the special plan area under the parcel map system. Those developers signed development agreements that referenced both the special plan requirements and the financing plan requirements. Those developments went forward and were not performed in accordance with either of those documents. For example, deposits were made to the county. Those developers had the option of either building those improvements or paying that deposit. The county, for example, was required to give funds to the Palomino Valley General Improvement Districts for design and construction of roadways listed in the special plan and the financing plan and the development plans. the small development that occurred out there happened along a narrow strip, Broken Spur, and a little bit along Whiskey Springs. Okay? Broken Spur was listed as one of those roads that was to be improved to county standards. County width, grading, drainage, 6 inches of aggregate base, 3 inches of asphalt concrete. Was never done. Nor did the county give the General Improvement District the money to go to outside consultants for design and construction of that roadway. So, in addition, those development agreements required that developers form homeowners associations and collect homeowners' fees to be paid for the ultimate refurbishment, reconstruction of that roadway, because asphalt concrete has a performance life of approximately 20 years, at the end of which typically requires some major remediation, whether it be overlay or reconstruction or something. So very similar to a condominium type project where there is a reserve study and a reserve fund set up. The homeowners association was to fund that amount of monies. Okay? So, road wasn't ever built to county standards. The GID never received monies for design and construction to county standards. Homeowners' fees were never collected to pay for refurbishment of the road. So, as the GID, we sit here stuck, okay? We're in a bad situation simply because those homeowners come into our board meetings and pound on the table and say, why aren't you improving our road? Okay. Enough for history, with the exception of when we come to approval of projects in a subdivision mode versus parcel map mode. A number of these parcels, such as those for LW Land Company, have been sold multiple times and have subsequently been sold again. Okay?
Mr. Johnson, you've had your 5 minutes. Could you wrap it up, please?
Okay. Our recommendations, quite frankly, are revision of the Warm Springs master plan and the special plan area. We'd love to see this, actually would prefer to see the special plan area removed from the GID jurisdiction. All roads within that special plan area need to be designed and constructed to county standards, need to be dedicated to Washoe County and maintained by Washoe County in the future. Any private interior roads need to be maintained by private homeowners associations. The Capurro proposed reimbursement, while we submitted a letter saying yes, he should be reimbursed for his surfacing costs, only a small amount of that actually lies within the special plan area, and his request for reimbursement is far in excess of the effort that was put there.
Okay.
That's my summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Greg Dennis, and then Mr. Lewis Test. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Greg Dennis, resident out there. Also member of the GID, and I attended my first meeting of this other task force. I, for the record, was the only no vote on the then Citizens Advisory Board back in the 90s against this SPA. It never made sense. It hasn't made sense. You all know it's broke. And I really appreciate you guys trying to fix it. It's not a simple thing to fix. The Washoe County standards apply normally, that you're supposed to build things to Washoe County standards. Nothing out there is built to Washoe County standards. Cape seals over roads don't work. The traffic is getting worse. We need ways to improve the roadways, and there's no money to do so. The only funding we can possibly get is development funding, and turning it over to the county, or a combination of homeowners association and general taxes to do repair and replacement costs and those types of things. It would seem to me that no good deed goes unpunished, because you guys have bent over backwards to help the development community. Give them fees, impact fees, so they could develop this property out there, and then they turn around and sue you to collect it back. I don't understand this, guys. Don't let it go on any further. Go ahead and make some good decisions with regards to, you have some really good, excellent examples from your staff. The interpleader is a great idea. They already went to court, they lost, now they're coming back being a nice guy to you. Isn't that great? Don't give in to this kind of stuff. Make a master plan amendment. Let's send it back to the Washoe County Planning Commission and really look at this thing and start with some base facts. Let's go back and get the facts. Let's bring them back to you. Let you guys see the things. Let the public input take place as usual. This thing's gone on for 30 years, is old and dead, and needs to be replaced and fixed. And we all know that. So let's work together to try to make this improvement take place, because you can't give away an entitlement, so let's fix what we got. And if we can, I don't have all the answers. This thing with the roads, the financing, all of this stuff, you all know it's broken. You can see the things, but you don't need to give in to the developers right now at all. They're on the defensive. Just do what you think is right for the community and the people out there. Thank you very much.
It's Mr. Lewis Test. Good afternoon.
Madam Chairman, board members, my name's Louis. Am I done? I'm an attorney. They only give me 2 words. I'll talk to you later.
Oops.
Broke it. I've been the GID's attorney now for probably about 20 years. And when this plan was originally proposed, we had one concern, and that was how are we going to maintain our roads with all this additional traffic and the downsizing of the number of lots that are out there. What we were concerned about was the fact that the major developer wasn't going to go ahead with the spine road, and we were going to be stuck with higher density and no funds in which to take care of those roads out there and the additional use. One of the things that Mr. Johnson didn't mention is the cost that we have to put up with when you start developing these properties. You're bringing in heavy equipment that's building these homes, and we've got gravel roads out there. We've been cape sealing some of the roads in an attempt to try and take care of the dust issue, which has been a major problem, plus give our constituents, if you will, better access to their property as they get further into the area. When you put heavy trucks over these cape seals, they deteriorate and fall apart. What Larry has explained, or Mr. Johnson has explained, the system has failed because a major developer didn't come in there. We feel that if you're going to allow this type of density, then you should require the developer to comply with the rules and regulations that the county currently has in regards to bringing the roads up to standards, that the county can accept them and maintain. Our thought was when the pavement went in there on these spine roads, we wouldn't have to take care of those roads because the county was going to come in, and then we could concentrate on some of the other issues that we have to do with the other 99 miles of roads that we have out there. But since there is no money, because the developer didn't put it in, and the new developers are not going to have enough money to pay for those costs, we're stuck holding the bag. So what our request is, future development comes in the smaller areas, they have to meet the county standards like everybody else in the county has to do. They have to pave them, they have to bring them up to the code that the county wants, then the county can come in, and then they can maintain the roads. But if they aren't willing to do that, don't pass those costs off to the residents that are out there right now. I think, and Larry, you can correct me, I think we get something like $343 per unit out there. That's an average. That doesn't go a long ways, even trying to maintain your gravel roads, let alone trying to maintain an additional 1,300 homes out in that area. We're having a hard time making it now. We're going to go broke. And then we really are going to have a problem with the residents out there. Require them to bring them up to county standards if they want to use the SPA, I'm trying to think of it, the SPA density. Thank you.
Seeing no more public comments, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board. And with that, I would open it up to comments and questions from the commissioners. Jean, I'm sorry, Commissioner Herman, would you like to lead off since this is your district?
I think that's working. All right. I've lived out there a long time, and I've seen what all the different steps as time has gone on. And when the SBA was started, it was like, wow, well, that sounds interesting, you know. And it looked like it could work. And people, some liked it, some didn't. I know there was a lot of disagreements and different ideas, but it was done. It was agreed on. So being that we've gone on several years now and things haven't happened just the way that it was planned, and maybe we didn't plan it right from the very beginning, but it was something that was tried, and it maybe could have worked a lot better than it has. But you know, it's like anything. Sometimes you have to make changes along the way. I don't know where to start, really. I kind of tend to agree with the folks that put their money down to begin with. And then things didn't work out quite right. The time went by, no infrastructure had been built. And the way that they understood the contract and the way I understood it was that they could request their money back. Well, that didn't work out. So I know that it's partially established. There's people living there. I think it's going to take more than just today to figure out where we really need to go from here. I tend to feel that, you know, when you have a contract, you have to live up to it. There's people in the valley that think that any more development is going to cause them grief. They worry about the water, just like everywhere else. It is the desert. There's just so many loose ends here. And I think we need to maybe start some serious talks, have some meetings out in the valley. And since we haven't been able to have any CAB meetings, we haven't been able to discuss any of these things. I'd like to get our CAB back on a steady and ordinary, like cabs are supposed to be, so that we can discuss these things and can work out solutions. I think we can work out something that'll work for everybody. So I don't feel ready to vote on. I can't see any of these items here that I could go with right now. There are some suggestions that some people have made, but they all need to go before the people of the valley. They really do. People in Palomino Valley, Warm Springs, really need the chance to put their words in and get their voice heard. And that's about all I want to say right now, because I think we're not ready to do anything that's on this list.
All right, Madam Chair, I brought a whole pocket full of change for putting in a bunch of 2 senses here and there. So, Mr. Luparelli, when I ask questions of legal, will it be you or Mr. Edwards that answers them? Or both?
I guess it depends on the question, Commissioner, if it involves, you know, the commissioner's roles and choices. Mr. Edwards has the background on the litigation and has represented the county along the way of the lawsuit. So
Okay.
how about if we say, if you have lawsuit-related questions, ask Mr. Edwards. If you have others,
Okay, well,
you can try
how
me.
about if we do this? I'll let you decide who answers the question, whether it's Mr. Edwards, and then I have some, of course, for Mr. Webb, and I've got some questions for Mr. Smith. So, if I may, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Certainly.
I'll
Go right
dive
ahead.
in. So, original property owners paid the fees, yet when they sold, they likely added the cost of the fees into the price of the property. Ergo, should they actually be refunded that money? Because, you know, it's just like anything else. If I purchase something, my house, I'll use my house as an example, and I've done some upgrades over the years. When I go to sell the house, I'm obviously not only gonna try to make more than what the upgrades were worth, but what the current market value is. But I've added the cost of those upgrades because they have improved my property, but yet the fees never improved the property. Am I making sense to you? So who really should get those fees? Should it be the current property owner? Because in my mind, the current property owner, the fees got tacked onto the price of the property. Or am I just thinking of it sideways?
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Nathan Edwards at the Deputy District Attorney. I've been working on the litigation on this case for 3 years now. It's a real interesting question that you've brought up. Fortunately, I think for the sake of simplicity, I'll just use what the statute says because
Okay.
it sort of answers it for us.
Okay.
The statute says that if they are impact fees and if the improvements they were intended for were not built after 10 years when they were paid, then refunds go to the current property owners at the
okay.
time the
Okay.
refunds are paid.
Okay.
The judge in this case has ruled that these are Chapter 278B impact fees.
Yeah, I read that in the summary in paragraph 2, last statement. So I read that. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So that'll be good for now, Mr. Edwards. Thank
Thank
you. Mr. Webb, let's talk about a master plan amendment. I know we have to go to the CAB, the Planning Commission, the BCC. What's a real time frame? And if we were to initiate a master plan amendment straight away, what's a realistic amount of time that it's going to take to
For the record,
resolve
Bob
that?
Webb, initiation to final action by the regional entities, because any master plan has to come into
Oh,
conformance
it's
with the
got to go
regional
to
plan.
regional. I forgot. It's got to go to Regional Planning Commission and then possibly Regional Governing Board.
Bare minimum time would be 7 to 8 months. That's a fast track, very simple master plan amendment. This will not be a simple fast track master
Right.
plan amendment. I would estimate that you'd be talking between a year to a year and a half. That's assuming that we can achieve some sort of consensus with the public to bring to the Planning Commission and ultimately to this board.
Because if we remove the provisions, rather, who takes over? Who gets to assume
Correct. And that's why I don't believe this would be a simple fast track
Yes.
master plan amendment.
Understood. Okay. All right. Mr. Smith. And thank you for indulging me, Madam Chair. Does the county, I'll start with this, does the county own Broken Spur?
For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering Capital Projects. Through the chair, no, the county does not own Broken Spur.
So in what context should the GID have received money from the county to build Broken Spur? Because that was at least that's what I inferred from one of the comments.
Through the chair, I'm not, my familiarity with the agreement doesn't address some of the comments that were made by a prior presenter. I can't answer that question right at this moment.
Okay, all right, and I understand. Is the county responsible for any road maintenance out there at all?
These roads, again, through the chair, are not built per county standards, have not been dedicated to Washoe County. Therefore, Washoe County does not maintain the roads in this area.
And do we very often take dirt roads into Washoe County? Would we ever take a dedication of a dirt road into Washoe County if they put down a certain amount of base and a certain type of gravel on top and provided for drainage? Would we ever take that road over from a GID?
In order for Washoe County, again through the chair, to assume the responsibility for operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement, they have to be built, dedicated, and accepted by Washoe County Commission, meeting Washoe County Development Code requirements. So the answer simply is no.
Okay. Okay. And so and this happened in Spanish Springs. I was not commissioner at the time. I actually would have required some slightly different provisions to this, but in Spanish Springs, we had SAD 32, which contemplated the finishing of Calle de la Plata and some cherry stem roads and et cetera, and each one of those property owners was assessed, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was $22,000. So essentially, if we were to take over the road system out there, I mean, we'd have to create a SAD. And this is not a suggestion. I'm trying to work my way through how this process could possibly work.
Again, through the chair, there are examples, you've just named one, Commissioner, where roadway infrastructure is built to Washoe County standards, then offered up and accepted and then maintained by Washoe County.
Correct.
That's one of the more common approaches. Roadway construction through a SAD program requires agreement by the community, a minimum number.
Right.
Requires Washoe County to be the designer, the contractor, assumes all those responsibilities associated with that. And there is a specific process to go through to develop a special
Right.
assessment district for roadways.
Which the Ranchos went through that process. The rub that I had is I would have required a supermajority as opposed to a simple majority, which is what, that would just be me in my own district, but I'll save that for another day. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Smith, right now. I don't see any path forward for us that doesn't include the initiation of a master plan amendment. And I'll just leave that on the table. We'll have more discussion. I'm sure that other commissioners have questions and comments, but regardless of what we choose, and I've kind of looked at some of these things, and there's the problem is I don't think there's any right answer. I don't see any one clear right answer, and that's what makes it very, very difficult. The court is giving us some clear direction, and I believe that we will. That the first thing that we have to do is sort of undo these fees, because regardless, we're going to continue to collect these fees as long as this plan is in place and is in effect. We have no other choice. So I'll save my additional comments for later, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments from either of the? So I have a couple of questions. As I understand it, the court has thrown out all standing except for one person, not 7 people. Is that accurate?
Yes, Madam Chair, Nathan Edwards, District Attorney's Office. The court at this time has dismissed all parties and all claims except for the Newells as to their 5-acre parcel in the plan area.
Okay. So you'd have to forgive me, but I don't understand why we would agree to pay out to someone that the court's already dismissed.
And that's a fair point. Some of them were dismissed because their claims were not ripe, meaning that at the time they filed the lawsuit, 10 years had not expired yet from the time that they paid their fees. And since the court decided these were impact fees, you have to wait until that 10 years expires before you're eligible to claim a refund.
So they could refile?
They could refile potentially based on ripeness.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question about the Palomino Valley GID. It covers Warm Springs?
I'll let the PIVGID folks respond to that.
Dwayne or whoever wants to come forward? Yeah, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Madam Chair, Larry Johnson, Palomino Valley General Improvement District. The boundaries of the GID are set in statute and encompass pretty much the entirety of Warm Springs, plus up further south along the Pyramid Highway, Axe Handle Road, up to the top Kurnow Canyon, back into the highlands. It covers pretty much covers the area that was the original Rocketdyne rocket testing property.
Okay, so, and what is the purpose of the Palomino Valley GID? What is your authority?
We have one duty, and that is to maintain existing roads. The roads we inherited from Rocketdyne and the master developer, McCullough, did not meet county standards in any form. So we got strapped essentially with existing dirt roads. A few of them were paved by Rocketdyne back in the 60s to service their rocket fuel testing.
I know Rocketdyne, I lived here then. So tell me, how much money do you receive from, do you receive CTAX?
There's a formula by which we ad valorem.
I understand
some
CTAX
sales-
very well.
some
So
sales tax
do you
and so
receive CTAX based on the entire footprint of the valley? So all of those homes that are in Warm Springs and all the roads that are in Warm Springs, as well as the greater footprint of the GID, do you receive CTAX based on the entire population?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and so are you maintaining then that you're only responsible for existing roads and not new roads as development goes in? The GID does not take responsibility for new roads as the developments go in?
Absolutely. We have a policy, just like Washoe County does, to accept new roads. We have standards by which roads would have to be brought up before our acceptance.
Do you receive any other funds other than CTAX funds?
Yeah, ad valorem CTX. We have a, obviously property tax type.
You get part of the property tax.
Yes,
Are there
there's a
any
special
fees?
assessment to the GID within all properties within the
So
district.
all properties are assessed
Yes.
a fee? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. If I could, I'd like to clarify one question as far as acceptance of roads by the county. Our roads are in kind of a special condition also in that county and city roads, typically the cities and the counties own the right-of-way, as the ZenDOT does. Those right-of-ways are actually dedicated to the agencies. Okay? We don't own any right-of-ways.
I understand.
Those are access easements along which roads are.
But you are tasked with repair and maintenance of the roads, and you are given funds to do that.
Yes.
Are you tasked and required to maintain them to the same standards that Washoe County sets for all of their own roads that they maintain?
No, we are not and could not. Impossible.
So you're not tasked that by law?
No.
Okay,
Could
thank
not.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Commissioners, I'm interested in hearing what anybody's thoughts is on what we should do with this. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, can you briefly talk to me about, Mr. Brian Murphy has sought reimbursement of approximately $319,252. Doesn't seem like it's approximately, but just saying. For work done on roads in or near the plan area. Talk to me about that briefly.
We received, again through the Chair, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects, we received a request for reimbursement for this work. Some of the roadways, if you see on your display overhead, you can see that there were certain roadways that are identified in the SPA for improvements, and then there are some that Mr. Murphy performed some work on that were not identified as part of the original plan. Furthermore, the work that he did does not meet the specific plan area requirements, which require that those roads be built to Washoe County standards. We did do field work and verified through submittals from Mr. Capro and his engineers what type of construction methodology was used. And again, they do not meet Washoe County standards. So after that review and understanding that only a segment of those roads were actually identified in the original SPA, based on that, I cannot recommend to you reimbursement for those because it doesn't meet the requirement of the SPA.
Who engaged him?
I do not know the answer to that question.
So we don't know who hired him and to what standards he was supposed to build. We never saw those contracts. Those contracts never came to Washoe County.
Washoe County did not, again through the chair, receive prior plan review. Typically the process would be they would submit, we would review condition. That was not part of the process that was done here.
I think he's due some money, but I don't know how to approach that. But I'm in a bit of a quandary with respect to that. But it seems like it's landed in my seat.
Commissioner Herman has some comments also.
Okay, I'll wait to make what few suggestions I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Herman?
It's kind of a response to what Commissioner Hartung was questioning, and that is that, when a developer is developing property, they will make the property as accessible and as favorable looking as possible to sell the lots. So I think that worked to that developer's favor. It's just part of his costs. The other thing is a legal question, I believe, and that is there any legal reason why Mr. Newell couldn't speak? Gentleman that's standing.
Madam Chair, for Commissioner Herman, if commissioners have a question of somebody and want to ask it on the record, the chair usually indulges them. The public comment period is over, but perhaps the chair would allow you to ask Mr. Newell some questions.
Certainly.
Okay. Would you like to come up and speak? Just for information, Mr. Newell is a vet from the Second World War, a corpsman on Iwo Jima. And I'm
Madam
just
Chair,
proud to know him.
forgive me for my voice.
It's okay.
I have problem with my health. But in regards to the agreement that we have with you folks, county unfortunately violated your contract. I was supposed to put the money in an interest-bearing count as a fiduciary capacity. They failed to do that. Instead of that, they put the money in the general fund, and they were also supposed to advise us of what the situation was every year. Also failed to do that. So we could never get information about where the money was until the employee finally admitted that we had to go through the FOIA to find out where the money was. And my memory also is failing me with my 91 years old age. And I can't even remember his name, but he finally admitted where the money was and promptly resigned. So the fact is, the money was supposed to be used entirely for creating the spine road. There was one road that was supposed to be built through the valley, and of course, after 5 years or 10 years, if it wasn't, so all these things weren't done, the money was supposed to be refunded to us, 10 people, 5 veterans, 5 other people. Unfortunately, none of these things got done, but we are entitled to the money. Wish it would look that way. Well, we can live so long. I'm 91 years old, you know, and I appreciate anything and everything you can do to help us. I don't know what to say other than if the money had been paid to build the spine road, that would have been it. But the money was never used, so it should go back to us. And since the money was never used, the current developers who are building should pay for the development of a road. And it's not that big a deal. So I don't know what else to say to you folks, except help us.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Also
you.
for your service to our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Herman? No. Okay, so I want to, anybody else? I want to make a comment. I guess I'm a little concerned, and Dwayne, maybe this might be a question you want to answer. I'm a little concerned about why a GID is receiving funding and is not required to build roads to the specific standards of the county within which the GID sits. I have a problem with that. I realize that's really not the issue here. But it is an issue from the perspective of, if we're not going to reimburse Mr. Murphy for the road work he did, largely because he didn't repair the road to our standards, why do we allow a GID to receive funds that is not repairing roads to our standards? And I understand how the GID system works, so I really don't need a legal answer. I already know the legal answer. That's a problem, a major problem for me. And so I believe that's something that we need to discuss at length at a later time. And we probably need to take this forward to the legislature, because this is a problem that these citizens don't have roads that are of the same quantity and quality that the rest of the citizens, and yet they're paying for them. And so I really have a serious problem with that. I think that's something we're going to need to discuss at length. Having said that, I don't see how we can reimburse Mr. Murphy, since we would not reimburse any other contractor in any other portion of the county if they didn't build the road to our specs. If it was a contract that we didn't issue in the first place, and we don't even know who issued the contract, how can we reimburse with taxpayer dollars for something that we would do nowhere else in this county? And I think that's my question to you.
Again, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering Capital Projects, to the chair. Certainly, based on the requirements of the SPA, it clearly identifies what shall be done, how it shall be done, and offers the pathway for that solution for reimbursement under those situations. So that didn't occur here. Based on our review, based on the information provided, that did not occur, and hence our recommendation is not for reimbursement of those fees, nor were the roadways, of course, in the specific plan area, and because this is within the GID, there's other rules, as you very well know, around the building or constructing of roadways and then the dedication process to Washoe County. So there's not that solution pathway through this. But I agree with you and would be more than happy to sit down with you and work through potential options as this continues to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that. Having said that, I don't know if a commissioner has a motion, but I will tell you that I cannot support the concept of reimbursing Mr. Murphy, and I absolutely support the concept of moving forward with a master plan amendment immediately, which we would have done had the lawsuit not been filed against us, as has been indicated to us by our legal team. This master plan amendment would have already been through the process and taken care of if it wasn't for the fact that we've been tied up in a lawsuit for the last 3 years. So despite the lawsuit, I think we absolutely have to move forward with the master plan amendment. And Commissioner Hartung, did you have something you wanted to add?
I do. A couple more questions, Madam Chair, based on some comments that were made. So, Mr. Smith, how approximately, I know you're not going to be able to give me an exact number, but what do you think the length of that spine road is? I know, tough questions, Mr. Webb. I know. I saw the look on your face. Approximately. I mean, those are 40-acre parcels. It's hard to delineate where the section lines are because it would appear that each one of those, the lines that I'm seeing out there are 40-acre parcels? Are they 640s?
Through the chair, again, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering. On good authority, it's approximately 5 miles.
5 miles. 5 miles of road. Okay. And I can tell you, $800,000 isn't going to build 5 miles of road. I guarantee it. Yeah, that's, so, one last question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Certainly,
Mr. Edwards, there was an assertion that the county violated the contract, and while I understand that the money was supposed to be refunded at a specific time, I don't know how that occurred, but was there a spine, was the spine road supposed to be built in that original agreement?
So the spine road is part of the specific plan area and part of the development agreements that each person who filed a final map for development entered into.
Okay.
But the 5 and 10-year provisions that apply in this case apply because of the judge's ruling that these are impact fees.
Understood.
Not because what the area plan or the contracts say. The area plan and contracts in this case do not include the 5 and 10-year refund provisions. The original proposal was that, prepared by the developers in this case, was that the contracts and the area plan include the 5 and 10-year refund provisions. That was removed after an objection from the Palomino Valley General Improvement District staff on the grounds that that was not a long enough timeline to complete the improvements that were contemplated in the plan.
I see.
The refund provisions were then removed from the plan and from the development agreements. So absent the judge's ruling that these are impact fees, there is no 10-year refund timeline in this case. However, as I indicated, the judge did rule these are impact fees. As it stands under that court order, the refund provision in the statute is that if it's not built within 10 years, then it is refunded to the current property owner.
Okay, thank you. So the way, and this will be my final comment, and I'll look for direction from the rest of my colleagues. I think we need...
Commissioner, sorry, did you need me to stay up here for any further?
No. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I think we need to conflate items 3 and 1A, but I don't see how we can accommodate 1A prior to 3, prior to the master plan amendment, because we're going to continue, fees will continue to be collected. And I guess we can start issuing refunds continue to collect fees, and then once the master plan amendment is done, and do that with contemplating that we would refund those fees if anything is collected. I think that's probably how we would have to deal with this, but my pocket full of change is gone.
Thank you. Mr. Luparelli, I have a quick question for you. Since the judge has already ruled that in her opinion, these are fees that should have been paid back at 5 and 10 years, judges can always change their mind. Is it the opinion of our legal team that that's likely to happen in this case?
Madam Chair, the plaintiffs in the litigation asserted that these were impact fees, and that's what got the judge thinking along those lines. But if you look at the history of the formation of the specific plan area and the financing plan, it's very clear they're not impact fees, and the reason is, and the prime difference between impact fees and the developer fees is that in the impact fee situation, the government does have an obligation to build something with the money that's in the fund. We most commonly think of the RTC using impact fees to build roads.
Right.
When this plan was approved, the commissioners very clearly decided that the county was not going to be the builder of these roads, and that it was going to be the developers who did it with this fund of money that the county was acting as a trustee for. So that's why we have a difficult time accepting the conclusion that these are impact fees, because if they are, there's a lot of other things the county failed to do. The county did not formulate a capital improvement plan, which impact fees require to be established. The county did not do all the other things that the impact fee statutes require it to do in order for them to be legal fees. So yes, the current state of affairs is that there's a finding by the court that the best description of these things are impact fees. But if there's a resolution to the main problem, which is that the finance plan doesn't work and that the master plan could be amended to remove that non-working finance plan, then a settlement could be reached as to what to do with the already collected fees.
Thank you, Mr. Luparelli. It would seem to me that in light of the situation we're in, we should follow Commissioner Hartung's comments and and approve a combination motion of 1A and 3. 1A being that we pay back the partial or full refunds to the current property owners in the Warren Springs specific plan area, not to exceed a total amount of approximately $800,000. And that number 3 is the master plan amendment, and direct staff to initiate all amendment activities immediately. I guess the question, commissioners, is do we start paying back to the rest of the motion? Do we start paying this money back now? And or do we hold the money for months until the master plan amendment is done? Are we in a better, more logical position to do it now rather than, and then do, as Commissioner Hartung indicated, hold any additional monies that might come in from developers until such time as the master plan is amended? Commissioners? Commissioner Hartung?
And I certainly don't mean to be leading the conversation. That's not my intent. But if we decide to amend the master plan, would we contemplate only removing the financial portion of the plan, or would we do what would be wise? Mr. Webb, can I ask a question of you? Does the plan need revision? Does the plan need revision anyways, as many do, and we have run into master plan amendments and requests over the years? Should we go through a wholesale look at that plan while we're cracking it open?
For the record, Bob Webb through the chair, my recommendation, not being wise at all, is it has been a significant amount of time since last that plan was seriously looked at.
Yes.
My personal belief, and sadly I'm one of the few in the room that was here when the plan was actually formulated and adopted.
You were only 5.
I was 5 at the time. I believe that it would be difficult to only crack open the finance component without involving other threads in the plan. It may be that staff's recommendation through the PC with community involvement to the BCC may be just that. But I firmly believe that that's going to involve other threads you have to pull at, and then to bring a finished product to you is going to be broader than just that simple financing component.
Yeah, and I
Thank you,
understand.
Commissioner Harton. Let me
Yeah.
just add
Oh,
to
no,
that.
I'm sorry, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Webb, I think it also would be fair to allow the many new residents who've moved into this community to have a say in what they want their master plan to look like.
Agreed.
So I think there is something
Agreed.
to be said for opening it up completely and let's just do a master plan review and ultimate revision.
So if I may, Madam Chair,
Oh,
so.
okay, hang on a minute. Mr.
Oh,
Liparelli.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, you certainly could direct that to be done, but today's agenda contemplates directing the planning staff to initiate master plans to remove the financing portions of the plan. So you're on the agenda today to do that much. At another meeting,
Okay.
in another
Okay.
forum, you could give direction on the larger question of all the other provisions of the plan.
Good idea. As we move forward, we'll be looking at it again. Commissioner Hartung.
Madam Chair, and I'm, again, certainly not trying to take over here, but I would make a base motion that we, I move to amend the master plan to remove the finance portion, ask staff to bring back the, at our next meeting to change the entire master plan, to open it up and revisit it.
Okay.
And hold on, and item 1A, start to pay partial refunds to the current property owners with the caveat that if we collect any funds in the interim, that as soon as we can possibly refund those with the master plan amendment, that they be refunded. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, do you have that make sense to you?
We've got the motion.
Okay, good. I have a motion and a second. We've done public comment. Any additional comments from the commissioners? Mr. Liparelli, are you okay with that motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, please cast your vote on the screen and then affirm your vote above. Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Herman voting no. Mr. Manager, I believe we are now moving to item number 20-something or the other. Item 30, the red, white, and Tahoe blue item.
So we'll move now to item 30, which is a public hearing. This is an appeal by Red, White, and Tahoe Blue of the administrative denial of licensure for the 2018 Red, White, and Tahoe Blue Outdoor Festival business license, fireworks display, and directly related events on July 4th, 2018, pursuant to Washington County Code, Chapter 25, and related provisions. The board may affirm, reverse, or modify the administrative decision. Madam Chair, Dave Solero is not here today. Sarah Tone has been actively involved in this process, and they have communicated with each other, and she is here prepared to begin this process, and I believe the appellant is here as well. So if we could start with Ms. Tone and her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Ms. Stone.
And thank you, Chair. For the record, Sarah Tone with the Office of the County Manager. And while I don't have a large, complex presentation for you today, I did want to take a moment to do the highlights so that we're all on the same page from where we are now, how we got here, and what we're really talking about. So with here today, we're talking about an appeal of an administrative decision by staff to deny a business license for the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue 2018 festival in its entirety. And that's the important part, is in its entirety. Thank you. I'm getting a little bit of help on the technical side. Thank you very much. I just wanted to take a moment to highlight the complexity of the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue event. This is not a simple fireworks show. Based on the location and the fact of the size and complexity of the fireworks show, this is not just simply setting off a fireworks show. It's located within the Tahoe Basin, so they need to consider not only bi-state partnerships, but also the regional planning, FAA considerations, the Coast Guard considerations, and then also considerations from local government to provide public safety. The event is 4 days typically, hosted between June 30th and July 4th. It includes not only the fireworks show, but an umbrella of smaller events, often celebrating local veterans in that community. The events range from 300 to over 10,000. And typically, the process, can you go back one? And, oh no, that's okay, thank you. Oh man, there we go. And typically the process starts with staff reviewing the application. You've seen this before. The board reviewing those conditions of the application, and then staff licensure. This is what happened with this application. It was supplemented with additional efforts for staff to bring the application along so that we could protect public safety and ensure that people attending the event would not get hurt, or if they were hurt, that we were able to reach them and take them out as applicable. On May 8th, the board approved this application with 103 conditions. Key conditions in that were that all of the conditions be completed by June 1st. It required prepayment of services considering previous payments from previous years of events. It required performance securities. So if they didn't meet the conditions on the day of the event and our staff had to go in and supplement that we would take from those prepayments to help with our costs during the event. It also required that all of the conditions be submitted by June 1st for the event in its entirety. And approval of the licensure would occur by Assistant County Manager Dave Solero on June 11th. So what today staff is recommending is that you approve the application for the fireworks and related activities only for the 2018 Red, White, and Tahoe Blue Festival with a few contingencies. One, that all required permits and contracts be submitted in a single packet to the county for ultimate approval by the county manager. And this is how we got here. The conditions were not complete by June 1st, 2018. And that doesn't mean that we go through and do a checklist of what's in the application, but for each of those required conditions, that they have proven the ability to implement those. They have the appropriate contracts in place to be able to implement those. They have proven that monitoring is in process so that they can take care of that, and that cleanup occurs. We also require prepayment of services, and by June 1st, that hadn't occurred yet. I think the most important thing on this slide is maybe not bulleted there. You would expect that on June 11th, when the appeal and denial was submitted, that work would stop. But based on the understanding of staff that this is an important event for the community, the fireworks show, we kept working on it. So for certain agreements for the fireworks show only, we worked out the traffic plan, we worked out the traffic contract with us and our partners that occurred. There are 3 remaining outstanding items that need to be addressed. And between last Wednesday, the applicant might have already done that, and they'll be here to speak to those for you. The Nevada Highway Patrol permit and the Sheriff's Office agreement are needed. A crane approved and paid contract is needed. And most importantly, and outside of our role in Spectrum, is the Coast Guard permit and fire permit. And the reason I wanted to point that out is they are required to get approval by San Francisco, DC, and then back to San Francisco again. We have no role in that except for facilitatory. So if we can call them and explain the situation, but we don't have any approval role in that process. And currently that has not occurred. So right now I'd like to hand it off to the applicant who can show you what they've done over the last few months and especially over the last few weeks. And then we'll be here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Tone, I appreciate that. And we'll hear from the applicant.
Yeah,
Could we have the overhead, please?
We're back.
Kirsten Corman, co-chair 2018 Red, White, and Tahoe Blue for about 8 weeks with my co-chair Jeffrey Corman. First of all, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to hear us again. I also want to thank quickly a few people. Your staff has been amazing. County Manager Bob Webb, Assistant County Manager Dave Solaro, Washoe County Management Analyst Sarah Tone, Incline Village Director of Parks and Rec Andrew Winquest, Mark Regan, Fire Marshal, North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, Lieutenant Michelle Bello, Washoe County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Mike Edgell, Nevada Highway Patrol, and of course, you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the commissioners. Thank you. I know you guys have, you probably have quite a few questions. I was hoping to use the overhead. Okay, to just quickly go through and answer some of those. I got it right, all set. So first off, I know you have questions about some of the permits and things that are required. I also know that there's a big concern about funding, and I wanted to address that first, if I may. Okay.
The other way.
Okay, so it's hard to read, small print. I think I forwarded it to you last night, Madam Chair. This is a letter from the Hyatt. We met with current General Manager Michael Murphy. We had a long meeting with him, former Chair Jim Smith, and Andrew Winquest from IVGID, Parks and Rec. And they have been willing to draft this letter to kind of cover us. As you may recall, when we were here before, our conundrum was that several of our larger donors, and we're talking $10,000, $25,000, $30,000 donors and up, are unwilling to present those donations until we have approval. So, and I've reached out to them, I've spoken with them, they choose to remain anonymous at this time. I have personal connection with our communication with them, and they're just not going to budge. So we went to Michael, Mr. Murphy, and he said, you know what? No vendors are going to go unpaid this year, which was a big problem last year in 2017. So we provided them with some of the costs here, a breakdown of what some of this we've already put forth, prepayments. However, and they did put in the bottom, because they have to, that we're going to pay them back, and we plan on paying them back because we'll be able to. I am confident of that, not only as chairperson, but just as a person with integrity. I know we're going to pay them back. But that's to cover our butts there, I guess, if you don't mind me saying so. Then the second was something that Ms. Tone brought up, and we do have the Silver State contract. The Incline Village General Improvement District has taken that on, so they have contracted because they are going to pay for that. And if RWTB is able, after July 5th, to reimburse IVGID for all or half, we will. But that's in place, and it's been approved, the contract and the implementation of this contract and all the safety needs by Silver State has been approved by your staff. Washoe County Sheriff's, thanks, honey. We have given them the $4,000 prepayment. I did that before our last meeting with Mr. Solaro. And this is an email between myself, Lieutenant Bello, and Mr. Solaro. I had requested the contract since I had paid, or I was on my way to pay the $4,000 prepayment, and Lieutenant Bello informed me that it would be impossible in that short amount of time to revise the contract. So, don't take that off. So I asked Dave in an email, and he said that as long as the payment was made, the prepayment of $4,000, that Lieutenant Bello and Red, White, and Tahoe Blue could work that out. So we're in that process at this moment. Oh yes, so with regard to NHP, and again, I don't know how this happened, how this continued on for months, but NHP requires red, white, and Tahoe blue to include liability insurance on the NHP patrol cars that are present for the egress of the fireworks. I didn't think that was going to be a very big problem, but apparently we were informed by Manath Insurance that no underwriter they have was going to touch that. No idea. My bandwidth was pretty tapped just trying to get the rest of this together, so I was hoping I had put it in good hands. Is what it is. We made a phone call to Farmers Insurance yesterday, and after he made, I don't know, Larry Payton may have called 5 to 7 different underwriters until he got one to accept it. So I don't know what the issue is there, and going forward, we'll find out why underwriters don't want to insure NHP vehicles.
It is covered.
It is covered, and I texted, actually, Sergeant Edgel, and I said, where are we at with the contract? And he said, as far as I know, they're signing it right now. So I'll be able to provide that before the day's end today. Okay, so then Bragg Crane, again, stepping in the 11th hour, wasn't aware that the event chair for the fireworks didn't have a handle on this. Fortunately, we have this great company. They jumped right in and changed it. We were only contracted for an 11,500 pound barge. We have 4 others that are over 30,000 pounds each. So we had to adjust that a little bit, which we've done, and that's the front. And oh, I'm sorry, I should have let you take it apart. And there we go. It's signed. They have a deposit of $4,000, and again, once we have approval, we'll have the funds to pay them in full before the day of the event. And I think I covered, let me make sure.
The only thing we haven't covered is the Coast Guard.
Correct. Okay, so just quickly, because I did give each of you these packets, there are 4 sheets, I won't put them on there, so that we have excellent communication between red, white, and Tahoe blue and all safety sectors, fire, IVGID, of course, Washoe County Sheriff, CERT, obviously under Washoe County, and Pyro Spectacular. So we have that set to fill out. And then the communication plan and the assignments, our radio rental paid here in full, that's done. And also a huge safety measures, all these crazy people parking on the sides of the streets, and who is going to take care of that. And so we have an agreement with Alpine Towing, and I included that as well. And then lastly, Fire Marshal Regan had asked us to get some volunteers to be good stewards of the environment. So we have now 10 volunteers with phone numbers. They actually all own or live full-time in Incline Village, and they'll all get a phone call from Mark at 7 if they're not at the boat ramp. So we have just trying to cross the T's and dot the I's. So I guess the big issue now is Coast Guard and North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District signing off. So I don't know if you're privy to, we're kind of stuck in this military conundrum. I don't know how these things work. However, I'm learning. And there were some things, I guess, that didn't, that weren't congruent between the application that Pyro Spectaculars put in with the Coast Guard and what was actually happening. And I believe that's been worked out. I think Mark Regan, Fire Marshal Regan, was instrumental in having that communication happen. And from my understanding is that that permit's going to go through most likely. The best indicator to me is that the San Francisco Coast Guard is actually sending 2 of their personnel to Incline Village to oversee. So I don't know, that just sounds like a good indication to me. I don't want to be too candid with you about it because I know it's serious and I know it's important. And then what was the other? So again, the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, Mark Regan, is just waiting for Coast Guard and a few other things that all kind of have to happen simultaneously. So we're in direct contact with Marshal Regan. Okay.
You'd like to make, but I would like to make a statement, and that is that I certainly appreciate all of the staff time that our staff has put into it. For your benefit, I know you guys came into this at the last minute, but for your benefit, you should know that we do many, 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 many events. And we don't do them ourselves, we permit many, many, many events. I don't think that our staff has spent as much time permitting the air races or the balloon races as they have on this year's Red, White, and Tahoe Blue. And yes, it's important. And yes, it is a beautiful event. I'm just going to tell you that this is not going to happen next year. So from my perspective, if this commission approves this, they approve it based on the fact that our staff has put so many hours into it, and that we recognize there are going to be 5,000 to 10,000 or more people up there, and it's necessary for us to have some assistance with your security teams that you've put together to make sure that it doesn't cost the county an exorbitant amount of money to make sure that citizens up there are safe and protected. So that's what this is all about. Yeah. But please understand, I know you guys came into this late, and I know you've really done yeoman's work on it, and I appreciate it both, everything you've done. I appreciate you both very much, and all the rest of the team. But I want you to know that we are not going to be able to approve this next year unless you guys start working on this on July 5th. Oh, I'll give you the 6th.
How about the 6th? Yeah, thank you.
The 6th. But this has got to start immediately so that you guys have a smooth transition and all of the staff time that our staff, who have many, many, many things to do. I mean, I think they've spent over 160 hours just in the last 2 weeks, or 150 hours just in the last couple of days, 2 weeks, just on this one issue. And they have many, many other things on their plate. So I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I know you understand where I'm coming from on this. So I would turn it over now to Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have to say, to both you and Jeff, you guys have worked tremendously hard, and I understand the lift that you guys have had to endure this last couple months. But what I'll say is that this event, as Chair Burkberger had pointed out, is not about this event specifically, and I think we were fairly clear last meeting when we discussed this, that this was not something that we were taking lighthearted, that this was very important, that we felt that you needed to hit those certain guidelines. And I understand that there's certain challenges that lie ahead. However, if we don't, this is one of those legacy events. Whether you market it or not, people are going to show up to Incline Village. And it's not going to be just necessarily people from Reno, Sparks, or Washoe County, or Nevada for that matter. These are going to be residents from Sacramento, Bay Area. They're going to be all over California that are coming to that area, whether we market it or not. And so realistically, what this issue comes down to is, as the chair alluded to, is that this is a security problem for our residents that live in Incline Village. And those people are going to come there for the holiday weekend. They're going to descend into Incline Village expecting certain things, not having that in place, potentially having one deputy on shift up there if we don't subsidize this, if we don't get the property security plan, and it's going to be absolute mayhem. And so we need to, as a county, protect not only our residents and our citizens up there, but the businesses, all of our assets that we have enlisted in Incline Village. And then at the same time, try to help you get back to a place of zero, so to speak, so that you guys can feel comfortable with pulling an event off. And so, hopefully, I'm supportive of just getting this event off so we can get the fireworks show, and so that, because that is really the key event. Putting everything else to the side, let's just get the fireworks show off. Let's get it safe. It's at night. I mean, I've been to that show a number of times. I know driving home on Fairway Drive can be nightmarish. It can go up Country Club can be a challenge at night. If we don't have traffic, if you don't have traffic mitigation there, people are going to get hit. There are thousands of people walking off the beach. It can be bad. So I'm hoping that everything is in place, and I'm really happy that Hyatt is pulling their, because I saw that they're still marketing people and they're selling tickets to the show at $100 a ticket. So when you're selling tickets for an event that still hasn't, that kind of gives me a little leery. But at least they're willing to step up and pay the what I calculated $106,000 bill here. That's a pretty hefty lift. To that extent, too, I'm going to, and I have promised the chair that I will take this to the board of our Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority come Thursday for any subsequent and additional funding to help this. Because like I said, taking off my county commissioner hat and putting on my tourism hat, this is a legacy event that is regionally known. This is something that we see pictures of our northern Nevada or Nevada as a whole, nationwide, worldwide, are pictures of the Incline Village, fireworks show. So it's one of those things that needs to go off, and it needs to go off flawlessly. Just realize that we are not taking this very lightly. Hopefully that we get back to square one, and I'm saying on July 5th at like 12:01, I want you working on this. I'm not even giving you the date off. Because this is so important that this goes off flawlessly next year. Because this is a one-time thing. You're getting a lot of community support, as we've pointed out here, that other events don't even come close to getting. So I just need, for all the citizens up there, this is really not about the event. This is about protecting the citizens. This is about protecting the residents. This is about protecting property up there, and making sure that we get through an event without having major casualties. Because we do live in a different time, in a different landscape now, that things can go eerily wrong very quickly. So, all right, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
One other thing, I also had a conversation with Michael Murphy this morning. He called me and said, please, I just want you to know that we're stepping up and we're really helping out, and we intend to continue helping out. So I'm delighted to hear that. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think my question is going to be for staff. What happens if we approve and then the Coast Guard does not? What occurs? What?
Yes, Sarah Toden for the record, and it is staff's recommendation that the approval from the board be dependent on the county manager's final signature, and that would maintain that the Coast Guard actually approve.
Okay.
So if you approve and you give that authority to the county manager and the Coast Guard does not approve, the event will not be licensed by Washoe County.
Okay.
Thanks. So, Ms. Tone, one moment. As I understand it, the Coast Guard has control of the waters of Lake Tahoe, so I don't think this could go on anyway if the Coast Guard doesn't approve. Isn't that correct? And I see Mr. Indra from IVGID. So I don't really, we could certainly approve it with that. I don't have an issue with making that the motion, but I don't think they'll have a choice to do it if the Coast Guard doesn't approve it.
And the staff is understanding the risk to the county by approving an application that hasn't been approved by the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
So acknowledging their need to ensure that that water is safe and not taking on that risk on their behalf is why we're taking that stance. In addition, the fire permit cannot be approved without that Coast Guard permit.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
My final comment is I have no idea how we got this far down the road and not having all these approvals, and I'm not looking for any comments or excuses or any of that, but I like Commissioner Lucy. I'm with him. July 5th, 12:01. You guys are, if you're going to take it over for the 2019 season, there's a lot of cards in this shoe. This is not a single deck
No,
game.
that is our plan, and we actually have support from the Hyatt, because I don't want this to happen again. They've actually been selling tickets for 2 weeks now, and Michael Murphy's a little
Good.
nervous.
Yeah.
He's
well,
been contacting me a couple
yeah,
times a day, so
and-
the Hyatt is behind us, and we will be doing it in conjunction, hopefully.
Good, and again, rightfully so, and I'm hoping that we don't put the permit in next year and try to make adjustments by review. It's not Washoe County staff's responsibility, and it has taken an immense amount of time, and look, we're here to serve. I mean, there's no question about that, but there has to be a certain amount of competence on the side of the applicants. And this has been a great learning experience. And I realize you guys have taken this over and you've assumed at the 11th hour. But it's, I like Commissioner Lucy. I mean, I'm concerned. I truly am. So
Okay.
I'm behind you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We do have one public comment, Mr. Andy Chapman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Andy Chapman, President and CEO of the Incline Village Crystal Bay Visitor Bureau. I'm here on behalf of the tourism industries up in the Incline Crystal Bay area and on behalf of our board. First, I'd like to thank the board and through you, the staff as well, and the time that it has taken to push this to where we are today. And then also to the corpsmen, the co-chairs, for their work that they've done. Obviously, these fireworks are very important. Red, White, and Tahoe Blue has been putting on the 4-day event for some time. It's really the fireworks that drives the economic engine during this period of time for the tourism-based communities that we represent. We also recognize and tip our hat to the safety issues that are addressed. And Commissioner Lucy, you hit it on the head there. We have to make sure that the community is safe. We have to make sure that our residents are safe. We have to make sure our visitors are safe. So fire is very important. The sheriff and NHP are very important. But on behalf of our board, we do support and encourage the board to approve this firework permit only. And I would just end on a point, and you guys talked about it with the July 5th to 12:01 starting on next year. I think we'd like to have some discussions within our community and get some more people around the table to talk about the fireworks specifically. Maybe pull this firework part out of the rest of the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue kind of process and see if we can't work differently to get the fireworks done in a more timely manner. And certainly the corpsmen have worked hard and many people behind the scenes in doing that this year. But I think you'll see a renewed interest with some additional people at the table for that. But we do appreciate your time and your support, and we do understand all of the elements that you have to deal with during this, and particularly recognize and appreciate the safety issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. I appreciate that. I see no more public comment, so we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board and ask for a motion.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Lucico.
I will make a motion that I move to modify the administrative denial of the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue licensure for 2018 Red, White, and Tahoe Blue Outdoor Festival business license, and to license the fireworks display and directly to the events related on July 4th, pursuant to Washoe County Code Chapter 25 and related provisions.
And did you add that based on the approval of the?
Oh, yes. Based on the approval of
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, thank you. And other should we put other agencies?
Actually, I was hoping we could do final approval from the county manager.
Oh, and final approval to be signed off by Washoe County Manager John Slaughter.
Acknowledging permits being submitted and associated contracts.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. We've done public comment.
Who was the second, Madam Chair?
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you.
I see no other comments, so I will call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please cast your vote on the screen and affirm your vote up above. Motion passes 5-0 with all commissioners voting. Thank you very much. Okay. See you guys. All right, Mr. Manager, we need to open 29 and close it, I believe. Do you want to do that right now?
We can do that.
Okay, so let's open for public hearing, item 29.
Item 29 is public hearing to approve the conditions or deny an outdoor festival business license application for Lantern Fest.
And it has been pulled, so we will close the public hearing also. Do we need to do something else? Oh, we need to see if there's any public comment. See, I can read hand signals now. Did you notice that? I see no public comment on,
Madam Chair, for the record, the applicant has requested the withdrawal of this
yes.
permit.
The applicant did request that it be pulled until perhaps October, I understand. Okay, due to fire concerns. Okay, so we will now close the public hearing on item 29. And then I think we have to go back to item 15.
Yes, Madam Chair, item 15 is a recommendation to award request for proposal number 3042-17 for inmate medical services to the most responsive and responsible bidder, NAFCare Incorporated, in the proposed amount of $7,051,900.44 for period July 1, 2018 to June 30, 2019, and in the proposed amount of $7,051,900.44 for the period July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020. If approved, authorize purchasing and contracts manager to execute agreement. Madam Chair, I was going to kick this off real quick, depending on how much you, Madam Vice Chair. So I just wanted to begin by stating, back when we had entered into the discussions on a new inmate medical services contract, my office, I made the commitment that my office would be involved in the process of the RFP, working with the Sheriff's Office, working with our other stakeholders. We have had what I characterize as a very robust RFP process on this issue. And we bring to you today a recommendation that not only is the sheriff forwarding to you, but I am also forwarding to you this recommendation that we move forward with this agreement with NAFCare. There has been a number of changes just over the last year related to our inmate medical services with NAFCare, who is our current provider up till June 30. And going forward in this proposed contract, there are some changes that will only improve our services, our communication, and outcomes that we experience in our inmate medical services. So with that, if you would like additional presentation, I know the Sheriff's Office is here. Chief Deputy Green is here to present.
Commissioners, would you like a presentation? NAFCare, actually, we don't need a presentation. It's a great staff report as usual, but Commissioner Hartung has some questions for you specifically. So whomever can answer contract questions, please come down and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Donahue, Senior Vice President of Western States for NAFCare.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Donahue. And I'll put on the record, and as you're aware, Mr. Manager and myself went down. We did tour the facility in Las Vegas. Some of the changes that you intend on making that would mirror what's going on in Las Vegas. Just give me a 15,000-foot view of what's going to be different now than it was during the last contractual period.
Yes, sir. Well, after some obstacles that NAFCare faced originally going into the Washoe County Jail, we've made significant strides over the last couple of years. What you'll see in the industry is predominantly mental health issues and the opiate detox issues within a lot of communities. NAFCAR's made a lot of strides in those areas, have protocols in place that we'll be rolling out within the Washoe County Detention Center, and of course increased responsibility and outlook at the mental health population of that facility as well. Okay. To go into details, sir, we'd be here the rest of the afternoon, but we have that commitment that's where we need to go.
Those are the, I mean, basically if I cut to the chase, Mr. Donahue, I mean, the chase is, why should I give you the contract again?
Well, to answer that, sir, as responsibly as I can, NAFCare is a very leading in the industry, if you will, in all aspects of medical services, being mental health, dialysis, dentistry, the nursing, and the physician providers that we do. Very transparent company, owned and operated by our CEO, who is very open to open conversation and communication. So I hope that answered your question. I think we are, we've proven ourselves in several audits within the detention center, whether it be NCCHC, NSA that actually came in independently at the request of the sheriff's office, and we succeeded in those audits fairly well. So we don't take this lightly. We like to be an industry leader, proactive and progressive. So with that said, I hope we have your confidence that we will deliver the best medical services possible to that population, understanding that population, and the partnership and collaboration that we have with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office.
Well, and I mean, I have to tell you, I like the idea of having a dialysis unit available. I don't know, will we have a dialysis machine available?
If that could, I'm not sure on the specifics of the contracts there, but that, if need be, it would either be made available within the community, or if
So
mobile to bring it in, right. We have certain facilities that do have them built in based on a larger population.
Yeah, no, Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
They had a dialysis unit. It was impressive. Their own little room, and which is important. It has to be sanitary. I mean, there's just absolutely no question about it.
Yes, sir.
And of bigger concern though is, of course, the mental health issue, and that's one of the problems that we're encountering throughout our system, is the huge amount of mental health patients that are making their way into the detention facility, sadly. And it actually speaks to a larger problem where there needs to be a different solution in order to deal with some of the mental health issues that we're having right now.
I couldn't agree more, Commissioner. I think the importance of it being the collaboration and partnership between AFCARE and not only the jail, but the community in Washoe County.
And of course, that the mental health issue, as you know, Commissioner Jung, gets exacerbated by the use of drugs and alcohol. A form of self-medication, and that's it's just very, very difficult. But I was very impressed. I have to tell you, I was very, very impressed with the tour that we were given. I was very impressed with what we saw in Las Vegas. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that it was somehow contrived for our benefit. I mean, we were allowed to literally walk through the facility and look at all the different aspects. And if you did indeed contrive that, I'm impressed. You did a whale of a job, if indeed that were the case. And I don't believe that to be the case.
That was not the case, sir. That's
Yes.
the day in, day out operation of the Clark County Detention
Yes.
Center. Controlled chaos is what happens down there. A lot of different cogs having to be taken care of at any given time across the board in any mental health or just a comprehensive medical capacity, if you will.
Yeah, and I was pleased. If I may, Madam Chair, can I ask Mr. Green a question?
Sure. I'm not sitting at the hers, so if you need to speak, just wave to me. Okay, and Bobby Lucy, Commissioner Lucy is next.
Sir, does the board have any more questions for me, or?
Yes, I'll have questions for you. Thank you.
So Mr. Green, there was some assertions made via argumentum ad populum that the commission is somehow completely complicit in the organizational operation of the sheriff's office. And while we do oversee your budget, we don't oversee your day-to-day operations and how you intake inmates and et cetera. That would just be virtually impossible for us to oversee that constantly, which is why we have an elected sheriff. And even though 211020 does say that we have to ensure the safety and deal with the conditions that the inmates are in, which I believe we have, and as you know, I mean, I've been up a number of times. In fact, I'm due to go up again here the latter portion of this week. I do, Madam Chair. Wow. Beating on me.
Yep, nope, just wanted, this is a business meeting. and
This
we
is a
we want
business
to conduct
meeting.
our business.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so the question is, in terms of policy, are we now not accepting inmates in a non-approved restraint? So in other words, if they're not in an approved restraint when they come in the door, how are we dealing with that? And would we, if one of the admitting agencies, regardless of which one it is, brings an inmate in a non-approved restraint, how do we deal with that? And would we just say, look, we're not taking the inmate until these restraints are removed?
Yes, so, do I push that button? I want to push the
Should
button.
be on.
Okay, I won't push the button. Tom Green for Washoe County Sheriff's Office. Yeah, the commitment that we have made is that we have a policy statement that we will not take any prisoner in an unapproved restraint. And so those prisoners would be refused. The arresting agency would have the option to remove the unapproved restraint, at which time medical would evaluate that person and make a determination of whether or not we're going to take them.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to make sure of.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Donahue.
Yes, sir.
Couple questions I have for you. Based upon the previous service that NAVCARE has provided, one of the major complaints at the jails have been is one, lack of communication between NAVCARE and this body. Can I get your commitment based upon the sizable amount of this contract and moving forward, and that it be allowed for 2 years? Will there be an upgraded level of communication between NAVCARE and this body? Not necessarily just the sheriff's office, but this body as well.
Absolutely, sir. You have the commitment from me, for my responsibility of the West Coast. We will be communicating with the sheriff's office as well as this body, and that's a commitment.
How?
I would recommend quarterly meetings. I make a commitment to at least get to my sites at least quarterly. If we could schedule meetings independently for the commissioners, you will have that.
I would recommend that you set those up between the county manager and at least the chair and the vice chair, if not other members, but at least a quarterly meeting for the status of where you are with it. And then the last question I have is one of the other challenges that I remember that the discussions with NAVCARE were staffing, and that your challenges with staffing at the jail and making sure that you had continuous members employed up there and that level was maintained. What are you doing forward that is going to be changing those kinds of whatever systems that you have in place currently to maintain that certain level of staffing at the jails that we're going to get that adequate service?
Sure. We do have things in place, sir. Mainly that open communication with the sheriff's office as well. Chief Green, Captain Clark have been wonderful getting our nurses through the door as far as background checks, ensuring they can get into the jail to go to work. That's in place. We've been able to, for the most part, and I hope I'm not saying this out of turn, provide the staffing according to contract in the last year or so. There's been always a few staff that go unfilled, but we have an active recruiter in our office in Las Vegas that works nothing but the West Coast and a few other sites, but mainly to get those staff members in the area with a salary that's comparable to the community, so we can get those bodies in there that are qualified to deliver those services.
So you're actively making improvements to the staffing levels?
Constantly, on a daily basis.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Vice Chair Jung.
My only concern, and I don't know how you're going to make me feel better about this, we are at 100% employment. And one of our treatment centers closed completely down because a new behavioral health treatment came, which many of your staffing would qualify for, and they all exited to there because they were paying better. So with our high cost of living, at full 100% employment, what are you going to do to make sure we don't get in the situation before where we really had some staffing issues and the NAVCARE's response is we can't find anybody qualified to do it? That is not going to fly this time around.
And I understand, Commissioner, and that's really not an acceptable response from our company. I think what I told you a minute ago is it's ongoing, it's every day. We have to be looking at all aspects of of the nation, people that want to move to the Reno area, the Tahoe area, some people from California, which is hard to recruit sometimes because of the difference in pay as well. But I think we have it across the country. There is truly a shortage of nurses, but it's an ongoing issue, and we have to continue it every day to make sure we're meeting those contract obligations.
And I want to state for the record, I did tour the jail and NAFCARE with Lieutenant Clark. Did I just give you a promotion? Captain, oh, I give you a demotion. Ms. Thomas, County Manager Slaughter, and Commissioner Lucy and I went with Mr. Manager Slaughter to St. Louis, Missouri to tour a jail there that had one of your competitors that was thinking to bid on this. So I feel comfortable that we've done our due diligence and that we have the best bid that we can get on the market right now, because again, we're always going to have problems while we're in this boom to recruit and be able to backstaff. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Manager Slaughter?
Chief Deputy Green.
Madam Vice Chair, can I add one comment to your question about the?
Yes, sir.
Can
You
I add one comment?
absolutely
Okay,
may.
thank you. In the RFP process, we put language in there that required any of these companies that wanted to bid that they had to provide pay commensurate to the local hospitals, and that's something we hadn't done in the past, just for that very issue you were speaking to. And can I address one thing that Mr. Lucy said too?
Certainly.
We included in the contract that the county manager will receive the same reporting that the sheriff's office receives, so that we have that good collaboration, so that we have more eyes looking at this contract.
Good. Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions, commissioners? Did you do public comment? I see no public comment. I see no public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue? I don't see anybody jumping and running up here. So, Mr. Manager.
If I could just conclude on my part again, I had made a commitment to you that we would have a robust process. I'm confident that we did, but I need to recognize Pamela Mann, our purchasing contracts manager. She's the one that facilitated that process. Kate Thomas, our assistant county manager. Captain Clark, I would say, has been just amazing, as has been stated on many forums. Many of the changes that we're seeing and will continue to see, I think, are due to his diligence and his work that he's putting into that service. So I just wanted to say thanks to all the staff that put in so much effort to get us here today where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We truly are blessed to have such great staff. Thank you all so much for everything you do. All right, commissioners. Commissioner Lucy.
Make a motion to move forward to approve awarding the RFP for inmate medical services to NAFCARE.
I have a motion and a second. We've done public comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please vote on the screen and affirm your vote up above. Motion passes 5-0 with all commissioners voting. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, takes us to item 28, which is a
Okay.
public hearing item.
All righty.
This is possible action to consider a report of each property delinquent on utility charges in the amount of each property's delinquency, along with any objections to the report, and 2, considering the report and any objections to it, determine whether to adopt the report and correspondingly report a resolution to collect delinquent utility charges on the tax roll. We do have staff here if you need a presentation on this item.
Commissioners, are you looking for a presentation on this item? Okay, Commissioner Hartung has a question.
What happens? Are we going to put these properties up for sale? Are we going to foreclose on them and?
No, for the record, Ben Hutchins, Community Services Department. No, Commissioner Hartung, basically, we're just going to be putting a lien. Basically, what we're going to be doing is adding it to their tax roll.
Okay.
And they'll be required to pay through the tax roll process as if they're paying taxes.
So their property taxes will just go up by that certain amount?
Yes, that's correct.
I see. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? I'm assuming there's nothing else. Do we have any public comment? I got to go the other way, don't I? Aha, I see no public comment. So, commissioners, we have no public comment on this. I'm looking for a motion. Okay, you want a second? She pushed it first. Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second. We have done public comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please vote on the screen and affirm your vote above. Motion carries 5-0 with all commissioners voting. Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, we do need to go to item 31, which would be our closed session, but prior to that, we suggest that we do item 32, which is public comment.
Okay. Item 32.
Actually, Madam Chair, could we reverse that?
Oh, I'm
and,
sorry. Right.
Take the motion on the closed session, and then your final public comment will be after all the other
Oh, okay.
action items.
All right, so we need a motion on closed session for discussing labor issues. Commissioner Hartung. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Nay?
So, Madam Chair, just to clarify, after you recess your meeting here, you'll be going to your closed session and then
And then we'll do
adjourning
public comment.
from the day's meeting in the caucus room after the closed session. Is
Okay.
that correct?
Seconder agrees.
Motioner agrees, seconder agrees. We've all cast your vote on the screen and affirm your vote up above. Motion passes 5-0 with all commissioners voting. So, and we will do public comment last. So we're at 33, Mr. Manager.
33 is Commissioner, County Manager's announcements, reports, and updates, requests for information or topics for future agendas. I do not have anything.
Anything? I have Commissioner Lucy.
Madam Chair, the one thing I would recommend is that, to just kind of help out with what Commissioner Hartung said, is that we come back and bring back the Warm Springs special area plan, or specific area plan for further review, and more than just the finance portion of that, but full review of that plan for a future meeting. And also, Mr. Manager, I would like to talk to you about some more issues with the South Valley, not issues, but just some ideas for the South Valley's regional park area. So, and talk about some park funding and what we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else? Seeing nothing, we are in recess for the closed session.